Chuang 1, what did you say? The city is surrounded by mutated beasts. Bian Changxi shot to her feet. The bright white ceiling light blurred into a hazy glow before her eyes. Dizziness washed over her, and for a moment she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. Yes, sister-in-law. The man who burst into the office shouted in panic. Countless mutated beasts and zombies, they've already reached the outer walls. We can't hold them back anymore. But Juge Hassan returned from negotiating with the neighboring bases. What do we do? Why wasn't I informed sooner? Bian Changxi snatched the black walkie-talkie off the desk, no signal at all. She rushed to the floor-to-ceiling window and yanked the curtains open. Instantly, the flashing red emergency lights of the city flooded her vision. Below, the base was in chaos. Distant battlements blazed with fire. Brilliant flashes of elemental abilities and gunfire erupted into the night sky, as if trying to rip the heavens apart. Yet for every wave of beasts felled at the walls, more scrambled over, leaping forward in endless numbers. Their grotesque, hulking forms, razor-sharp claws, gaping maws dripping blood, some even unleashed powerful abilities of their own, hurling themselves wildly at the humans. Though the office was nearly soundproof, Bian Changxi could almost hear the earth-shaking roars and the screams of people plummeting from the walls. Her face turned ashen. After 7 years in the apocalypse, she'd seen countless zombie swarms and beast attacks, large and small. She could tell at a glance. This one was orchestrated. The mutated beast's behavior was far too strange. And besides, how the hell did they climb the 31-meter-high base gates? The outer walls were smooth, guarded by heavy fire suppression. There was no way they should have breached so easily. A chill gripped her heart. Suppressing the tremor in her hoarse voice, she spoke rapidly. We have 2 electronic surveillance lines outside the base, 3 man checkpoints, and 3 reconnaissance drones deployed. For the beasts to reach our doorstep without warning means there's a traitor. Someone's destroying Yunhua base from within. Su-hong, go find Yunhua, tell him to hurry. She turned and froze. The man who just moments ago looked frantic now wore a grotesquely twisted expression. A split second later, a fire blade pierced straight through her chest, bursting out her back with a thud before shattering the window behind her and vanishing into the night. Bian Changxi shuddered violently, doubling forward as if she hadn't yet registered what happened. She stared blankly at her chest, hand trembling over the gaping wound, then slowly, agonizingly slowly, lifted her gaze to Su-hong. Disbelief filled her eyes. A few strands of hair fluttered across her face, damp with sweat, casting a fragile softness over this woman who had never known gentleness, this workaholic who lived only for duty. Su-hong hesitated, a flicker of guilt in his chest. The follow-up strike he should have delivered immediately stalled. He turned his face away coldly. Don't blame me, sister-in-law. Blame yourself, you stood in Zhuge's way. Only with you gone can he rightfully marry Kai Jiangmei. With the undead and mutated creatures growing stronger every day, and Xinjiang base forced inland by rising sea levels, we happen to lie directly in their path. Do you think they'd pass us by? They're one of the top 3 bases. We can't fight them head-on. If we retreat, we'd be absorbed by Tengyang base behind us. Our only hope is to ally with Faishan base. Faishan base is strong. Their leader's daughter, Kai Jiangmei, is a dual-type ice and psychic user, mid-stage rank 8, incredibly powerful. And she adores Zhuge completely. Zhuge made this choice for the greater good. If you were in his position, you'd do the same. Bian Changxi's eyes widened. You, Zhu Yunhua, planned this. She couldn't believe they'd conspired to kill her. Of course, Xinjiang base advanced with ill intent, Tengyang base entrenched in the capital region, and the climate shifts made mutated flora and fauna harder to handle by the day. As a Tier 2 base, their survival space was already narrow, now squeezed from all sides. The base's upper echelon was split. Over half insisted they couldn't abandon the base, must fortify internally, and ally with neighboring bases to weather the crisis. But alliances weren't easy. The past few days had brought endless disputes, no concrete plans, just chaos. The weaker Facian base had indeed hinted at a marriage alliance, sparking interest among several base leaders. But Zhu Yunhua already had her, Bian Changxi, as his wife. Even if their marriage lacked affection publicly, how could a proud rank 8 powerhouse like Kai Jiangmei accept being a concubine? Bian Changxi had believed this had nothing to do with her. She never imagined Zhu Yunhua would want her dead. A deep sorrow filled her heart, then surged into seething hatred. To kill me, you brought down an entire beast swarm. Truly an impressive scheme. Su Hong smirked. Don't worry, sister-in-law. The base's critical supplies have already been relocated. All rank 5 plus ability users have been evacuated. Right now, only your loyal troops and those who oppose Zhuge are defending. And in half an hour, Zhuge will receive word and rush back to rescue us. The base won't suffer major losses. Bian Changxi's hand flew to her bare left wrist. That's right, her Jade Bracelet farm had been taken by Zhu Yunhua that morning, supposedly as a last resort bargaining chip. But in truth, he used its spatial capacity to transfer base supplies. And now, using the beast and zombie swarms, he not only kill her but eliminate dissenters, while condemning 50,000 survivors to certain doom. On the surface, the base would appear devastated, worthless to Xinjiang base, no longer worth plundering. What a perfect act of deception. What a flawless escape. Clever. Ruthless. A cold fury surged through her. Years of loyalty, of weathering storms together. Even without love, they'd been closest companions. And now, the true face of that gentle, handsome man was so hideous. How deeply he'd hidden it. Bian Changxi let out a bitter, hollow laugh. Su Hong's eyes flickered. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Don't hate Zhuge, sister-in-law. Forgive my disrespect, but your ability is useless. Medical tech has advanced, farming's industrialized, low-tier wood abilities are now just filler. And Yurei only late-stage rank 6. You can't support Zhuge. Worse, Yurei too strong-willed, too opinionated. Take this crisis. Everyone said to stand and fight, but you insisted we lacked advantage in terrain, timing, and manpower. You wanted to retreat north, even suggesting we seek help from Tengyang base. His gaze turned venomous. Who doesn't know Tengyang's leader, Gusu, is your old flame? Yurei practically slapping Zhuge in the face. Do you have any idea how humiliated he felt? Bian Changxi's laughter cut off sharply. I've done nothing wrong with Gusu. Is that so? Who can say? She glared at him, then slowly, coldly smiled. Y'all get what's coming to you. Wait, soon y'all regret this. She staggered backward, her back hitting the windowpane cracked by the fire blade. With a thunderous crash, the entire glass wall shattered. She fell backward, plummeting through the air, thud, hitting the ground hard, sending up a storm of dust and debris. Panic screams erupted from the fleeing crowd below. Su Hong frowned. He reached out instinctively, why hadn't he caught her? Now everyone was watching. What now? Ah, never mind. Wouldn't it be better if she died in front of everyone? In an instant, his expression shifted to one of sheer terror and concern. He leapt down after her. A 6-story fall meant nothing to an rank 8 fire user. He landed lightly, rushed to her side, and cradled her in his arms. Sister-in-law. What happened? You can't just jump like that, what if you get hurt? Shouting, he turned to the crowd. Quick! Call the med team. Before the words left his mouth, a sharp sense of danger exploded in his gut. Instinctively, he activated his ability, forming a barrier around his body. A thick layer of flame burst from beneath his skin, engulfing him in a crimson glow. But at the same instant, thick green vines erupted from the ground and from Bian Changxi's body, sharpened tips stabbing at him from every vicious angle. His abdomen, the soles of his feet, even his groin were pierced. And hidden among the vines, 2 wooden spikes lunged straight for his eyes. Alarg! Su-hong roared in agony. He unleashed his flames outward in a 3-meter inferno, incinerating every vine and spike in an instant. But the woman in his arms, pretending to be dead, sprang up. Her hands snapped to the sides of her thighs. 2 small, pitch-black pistols appeared, pressed directly into Su-hong's eye sockets. She pulled the triggers, without hesitation. Bang alag! Su-hong hurled her away with all his might, thrashing wildly on the ground like a madman. Bian Changxi flew through the air, her body engulfed in flames, burning like a fireball. She convulsed, yet a faint smile curled at the corner of her lips. Su-hong was dead. Theoretically, rank 8 ability users were immune to anything short of missiles or nuclear weapons. But her pistols were no ordinary weapons. The bullets fused with purified bone essence from a rank 6 mutated tiger. Large caliber, extreme penetration. Fired straight into the most vulnerable point, the eyes. The bullets tore into the skull, spinning violently, turning the brain into mush. No brain, no survival. Not even the strongest ability user could survive that. Unless a rank 9 wood-type healer intervened immediately. And how many rank 9s existed in this world? Not a single one in Yunhua base, that was for sure. Su-hong had drugged her food to suppress her ability. Shed realized it the moment Shed tried to heal herself after being struck by the fire blade. So Hede let his guard down. But Hede forgotten one thing: she was a wood type, specializing in healing. How could she not know countermeasures against toxins? Given the slightest opening, she would strike like a parasite, relentless, unyielding. But it was too late. She suddenly remembered the year she rejected Gusu, his cold, frost-laden eyes as she turned away. Zhu Yunhua isn't a good man. Don't you dare regret this. Such an ungraceful thing to say. Shed thought it just anger. Never imagined it would become prophecy. When he heard of her fate, would he just sneer and say serves her right? Bian Changxi smiled bitterly. Her pupils dilated, staring blankly at the heavy, pitch-black sky above, no light, no warmth. In the distance, human screams and beast roars never ceased. The air reeked of smoke, blood, and decay. This wasn't the world she wanted. Then, let it end. With one last flicker of dark humor, she thought of an amusing twist. Shed made a few edits to this chapter. Chuangtu Changxi, Changxi, wake up. No, we need to send her to the hospital. Looks like she's got the flu too. Wait a second. Changxi just stayed up too late, don't rush to the hospital. Changxi, wake up. Someone was shaking her. Bian Changxi groggily opened her eyes. Her head throbbed as if splitting open, and then she froze. Blinding light. A wooden bed. Snow-white mosquito netting. A spacious, tidy room. This was exactly how her dorm room had looked before the apocalypse. The person shaking her broke into a relieved smile. Changxi, you're finally awake. Thank goodness. Bian Changxi blinked, stunned. Shasha. The person before her was unmistakably Chen Yisha, her only roommate during university. Like her, Shasha was the daughter of a major Jiang city conglomerate, doted on and spoiled at home. Beautiful, kind, and popular, unlike Bian Changxi, who came off as prickly and disheveled. In college, everyone avoided her, except Shasha, who chose to room with her. They weren't particularly close, but after the apocalypse, the two had become each other's sole support, clinging to survival together. Changxi had always been weak. Her ability and Jade Bracelet space never manifested until much later. If not for Shasha, whose water element ability awakened early and who protected her at every turn, Shed have died countless times in those first 2 months. Changxi had carried that gratitude with her until the day Shasha died a brutal death, a loss Shed never been able to overcome. But now, Why was she seeing Shasha? Hadn't she been killed by Su Hong? Her heart had been pierced, then scorched by rank 8 flames. Even with the wood element's incredible vitality, survival was impossible. So what was this? Oh, you're awake. Another voice came from the side. A middle-aged woman put down her phone and pressed a thermometer to Changxi's forehead. No fever. Miss Bian, do you feel unwell anywhere? Changxi stared at her, puzzled. The woman wore a sharp business suit, her alloy-rimless glasses perched on her nose giving her a stern, cold air, yet beneath it, a flicker of concern remained. Changxi slowly shook her head. She paused, memory stirring. This was her sophomore year counselor, Miss Zhu, strict by the book but secretly kind-hearted. After the apocalypse, Miss Zhu had immediately joined the first evacuation wave from campus. In the chaos, Changxi hadn't even seen her classmates, let alone the counselor. Later, Shed heard that those who failed to escape early were presumed dead. Good, so no flu, Miss Zhu said. But still, take care of yourself. How can you pull all-nighters like this? And drinking. If your immunity drops and you catch the flu, hospitals are the most dangerous places now. Once you go in, who knows when, or if y'all come out. She paused, noticing Changxi's blank stare. Normally, the girl would have glared back or raised an eyebrow. Thinking of her troubled family background, Miss Zhu sighed and let it go. She shooed away the gawking students loitering at the door, gave Shasha a few last instructions, and left. Changxi blinked. The flu. Right. Before the apocalypse, a global flu outbreak had swept the world. People collapsed into comas one after another. Scientists and doctors were clueless. Society began to unravel. In truth, the flu was a prelude, the first wave of infection. Everyone who fell ill would rise again as the first zombies. This so-called flu would later be mockingly dubbed the T-virus. She looked at Shasha's worried face and suddenly realized something. She shot upright, fists clenched. Something felt off. She looked down. Her nails, long, deep purple. Her hair, thick, wavy curls. She knew exactly how deadly such hairstyles had been during the apocalypse. Shed learned the hard way and cut her hair brutally short the first chance she got. And yet, all of this was how Shed looked before the world ended. Then her eyes fell on her left wrist. A piece of sheepskin jade bangle dangled there, her mother's last possession. Inside it lay the farm space. But after her death, the jade bracelet should have vanished with her. She clutched the blanket tightly, one hand pressing over her mouth. She was trembling, entirely uncontrollably. Could it be? Could it be? Shasha, alarmed by her strange behavior, leaned in. What's wrong? Are you in pain? Changxi forced herself to stay calm, her voice strained. Shasha. What time is it now? Shasha looked confused but pulled out her phone. 9:11 in the morning. Changxi glanced at the screen. May 20, 2013. She stared at the date, unblinking. No one who lived through the apocalypse would ever forget that moment, the moment the world was torn apart. At midnight tonight, everything would change. Humanity would face its most brutal, severe trial. 14 hours and 49 minutes left. She had come back. Changxi, what's wrong? Shasha asked, worried. It was your birthday yesterday. You drank so much, even wore that jade bangle you always hide, kept crying and laughing. You scared me. Are you okay? Shed survived 7 years in the apocalypse. Bian Changxi had ironclad self-control. She calmed down quickly. One thought dominated her mind. 14 hours and 49 minutes. What can I do? She shook her aching, hungover head, looked at Shasha, someone she hadn't seen in years, and suppressed the sting in her eyes. Did you see my phone? Shasha gave a wry smile. You went on a rampage last night. Smashed your phone and our landline, shouting about being bugged. Need to make a call. Here, use mine. I've got plenty. Changxi's expression darkened. She took the phone, muttered thanks, and fumbled with the unfamiliar device. She hadn't touched one in years. A minute later, she uninstalled an app. What was that? That app lets someone eavesdrop on your calls. Don't look so shocked. Given our family's influence, monitoring the younger generation is standard procedure. Shasha paled. That can't be. My dad loves me. But then again, Changxi, though cold, never joked about things like this. She hesitated, confused. Love? Changxi shook her head. What was love against interests? She stepped onto the balcony, phone in hand, gazing at the green trees and sunlight. Her eyes burned with emotion. When the call connected, her heart surged. Hello? Who's calling for big handsome Bian? A cheerful hip-hop voice came through, accompanied by rock music. Changxi pressed a finger to her nose, steadying herself. It's me. Little Beauty Bian. Are you at a bar? I need a favor. Can we talk? Oh. Zioxy. Hang on. The background noise quieted. A moment later, the voice returned, sober and serious. All right, go ahead. What is it? I need a plane ticket to Sioux City. As soon as possible. I must arrive by 9 tonight. A ticket? With the flu spreading like this, it's tough to get flights. Why are you in such a rush? Just tell me if you can get it. A pause. I can. But you have to tell me why. His tone turned grave, almost parental. Don't tell me you're chasing some guy again. Zioxy, the outside world is chaotic right now. If you catch the flu, how do I face uncle and aunt? Without a good reason, I won't let you leave Jiang City. Changxi's throat tightened. She whispered Bian Changxi. Yes. Why was she going to Sioux City? After the apocalypse, new bases sprang up. The closest, strongest one near Jiang City was Sioux City Base, thanks to Sioux City's long-standing military and economic power. Now that she'd been reborn, she could use her foreknowledge to secure her future. If she got there fast, she could claim housing, or even just a hotel room, avoiding the dangerous evacuation later. And when the base started forming, she could join from the beginning. With 7 years of apocalypse experience, rising to a high rank wouldn't be hard. But would that mean anything? Was rebirth just to take shortcuts? Would becoming someone important in Sioux City make everything perfect? Was that all life was? Hello? Zioxy. Don't be upset. Bian Changxi began to panic. Changxi laughed softly. You're right. Traveling now is too dangerous. Who could guarantee the apocalypse would start exactly at midnight? What if it came hours earlier? Even a bus ride could be deadly. Going to Sioux City now would waste her precious 14-hour advantage. Charging into the apocalypse unprepared, that was just stupid. Bian Changxi, she said, voice suddenly serious. Can I trust you? He froze. Of course. In the entire Bian family, I only trust you, and you only trust me. Isn't that our promise? Good. Then lend me every penny you have. She hung up, returned to the room. Shasha was gone. She frowned, then realized where she must gone. She began packing what little she could carry. But after her parents died 2 years ago, she'd pretended to be useless and broken to throw off greedy relatives. She owned almost no decent clothes. She grabbed a random outfit, pulled her big curls into a ponytail, slung on a sports backpack, and stuffed in her wallet, water, and basic hygiene items. Then she paused. She should tell Shasha the truth. But how? She couldn't reveal the entire apocalypse. Yet could she leave her ignorant again? Before she decided, Shasha rushed in, phone in hand, face anxious. Changxi. I told my dad. He didn't say anything, just ordered the driver to pick me up right away. Was I too rash? I can't believe. Changxi listened quietly. What will you do? Chuang 3, what else can we do? We just have to leave. But it'll come back soon, don't worry, Sasha said gloomily, opening her wardrobe and starting to pack clothes. Bian Changxi watched her, hesitating to speak. Never mind. Sasha had family, relatives, a powerful background. How could she possibly expect her roommate to abandon all that and run off with her like some homeless stray, throwing herself into danger and uncertainty? Last time, the apocalypse had struck suddenly. Both the Bian and Chen families were overwhelmed, struggling to survive themselves and never sent help. That was why she and Sasha had been left stranded. But if Sasha returned home now, at least her early days would be safe. That wasn't a bad thing. Why should she drag her into more trouble? Still, there were things she needed to warn her about. Sasha, I heard something. A little incident might happen tonight, Bian Changxi said. Make sure you're home before dark and don't come out again. Sasha shivered. What kind of incident? There might be a serious flu outbreak. I can't be sure of the details, but just avoid crowded places. Stock up on food, water, and weapons. If things really go bad, you know how unpredictable people can be. Robbery, kidnapping. Be careful. I know your family has plenty of bodyguards, but they're still human. They won't always obey you, and even your closest loved ones might not protect you in a crisis. No matter what, your own strength matters most. You understand what I'm saying, right? Sasha felt a strange weight in the other girl's gaze, deep, dark, and strangely compelling. Without thinking, she nodded. But Bian Changxi was filled with dread. She could never forget how, after enduring endless hardship just to survive, Sasha had finally been found by her family, only to be handed over as a plaything to some powerful man within half a year. When she tried to escape, she was shot dead on the spot, her body desecrated even in death. She regretted only that she'd learned the truth too late. But could she really say outright, your family will betray you? She had no solid proof, only hearsay. Speaking recklessly might only harm Sasha instead. She sighed quietly, then patted Sasha's shoulder with a tone so maternal she didn't even notice it herself. Just be extra careful. Always leave yourself an escape route. No matter what happens, don't act rashly. Find a way to get word to me. If I hear anything, I'll do everything I can to help. Sasha was confused, but her eyes welled up with tears. Bian Changxi grabbed her backpack and turned to leave, accidentally catching the edge on a stack of books. A photograph slipped out from between the pages. Sasha picked it up. Oh, it's your first love's photo. Last night you were hugging it and muttering in your sleep. This morning you forgot to put it away, so I just slipped it into your book. Bian Changxi's face paled as she took it. The photo showed a bright, clear day, a light drizzle falling through the air. Under a lush, leafy tree stood a tall, elegant youth holding an umbrella, his eyes slightly averted, his white shirt pristine, a gentle smile on his lips. Bai Heng. An old, dull pain crept up from the cracks in her heart, clawing through her chest. For a moment, her expression shattered. Sasha sighed. If you still miss him, go find him. 2 years ago, you sent him to America to protect him from your uncle. But now we're adults. And with love. If you wait too long, it might be impossible to fix. Impossible to fix. Yes. The Pacific Ocean was too vast, so vast it felt hopeless. If she'd been reborn just one day earlier, she might have made it across. But now, just like in her previous life, she was powerless. Bian Changxi blinked, then calmly tucked the photo away. I know. I am leaving now. You hurry too. At exactly noon, a heavy motorcycle roared up to the entrance of a rural market on the outskirts of Jiang City. Sleek and streamlined, painted in matte gray with a solid metallic weight, it drew every eye. A tall, long-legged man swung off the bike. He removed his helmet, revealing stylish chestnut brown hair and striking, chiseled features. A sparkling diamond earring glinted on his left ear, sending a ripple through the onlookers. Then a petite, pretty girl hopped off behind him, wearing a wide-brimmed sun hat. Used to the curious stares, she looked around with bright, curious eyes like polished black beads. "Is Changxi here yet?" She said on the phone she already arrived. The handsome guy glanced around, and suddenly froze, eyes widening in disbelief. "Xi, is that really you?" Near a roadside sign a short distance away, a slender, tall teenager stood with arms crossed. Dressed in black sportswear and black sneakers, with neat, short black hair and delicate, refined features, his pale skin and slightly upturned lips gave him a cool, aloof air. No one noticed the fleeting warmth that flickered in his icy eyes when he saw the motorcyclist. But when his gaze landed on the girl beside him, he frowned in clear distaste. The guy rushed over and tugged at the teen's short hair. "Holy crap, this is real hair. Why did you cut it like this? What happened to you?" The teenage form of Bian Changxi slapped his hand away. "It's convenient this way." She glanced at the girl approaching behind him. "Why is she here?" Bian Wei walked forward with a smile. "Changxi, long time no see. I just happened to bump into brother when he was picking up the bike. He said he was meeting you, and I've been missing you too, so I tagged along. You're not mad, are you?" She pouted adorably. Bian Changxi arched an eyebrow, shooting a sideways glance at Bian Quang, who sheepishly scratched his head. "I accidentally let it slip." But Bian Changxi knew better. Though he seemed rough around the edges, Bian Quang was actually careful and considerate. Shed told him not to alert anyone, so he wouldn't have. Most likely, Bian Wei had weaseled the truth out of him. She turned to look at Bian Wei. Different from the seductive socialite who danced between powerful men in her memories, this Bian Wei was just a 17-year-old high school student. Petite, shapely, a little spoiled and bratty, but dressed modestly. She was the pampered darling of high society, the youngest daughter of her uncle's second wife, and Bian Quang's half-sister. Though distant from others, Bian Quang adored and indulged her, charmed by her innocent act and her irresistible pouting. But Bian Changxi felt a chill. Back then, after Sasha was reunited with her family, she herself had been kicked out of the Chen convoy in the dead of night days later. Shed wandered in despair, barely making it to Sioux City base, where she found the Bian clan's organization. Bian Quang had treated her like family, always giving her the best of everything. But when Bian Wei, feeling neglected, failed to drive a wedge between them, Shed sent people to harass and humiliate the two of them, nearly forcing them out of the Bian family altogether. It was around that time Shed met Zhu Yunhua. After much hesitation, Shed left the Bian family to join him, thinking Bian Quang's life would improve. But not long after, he died, killed by that woman. Compared to Sasha's fate, she felt even more heartbroken and guilty over Bian Quang's death. The very first thing she did, after helping Zhu Yunhua rise to power, was to make the then-famous Bian Wei suffer a living hell. Dark memories surged up, old hatreds she thought Shed buried threatening to resurface. The cold fury in her eyes must have frightened Bian Wei, who shrank behind Bian Quang. "Why are you looking at me like that, Changxi?" Bian Changxi flinched, pulled herself together, and turned toward Bian Quang's motorcycle. "I don't want you here. Leave." Bian Wei's eyes widened. "Brother," she cried, turning to Bian Quang for help. Bian Quang glanced worriedly at Bian Changxi, didn't even look at his sister, and patted her hand. "Be good. Go home first." Bian Wei's eyes filled with tears. She looked back and forth between them, then stomped her foot and stormed off in a huff. Bian Changxi watched her go with icy eyes. "Bian Wei, you'd better stay in line this time, or else." She circled the motorcycle twice. "Not bad. High mobility, good speed. Only downside is the noise. When did you buy this Yamaha?" Chuang 4 Bian Quang studied her carefully, as if making sure she was all right, then proudly showed off his new motorcycle. This isn't a Yamaha. Do I look like the kind of guy who'd buy Japanese with how patriotic I am? A friend customized it to look the same, but it's been heavily modified. The mobility's way better. I am actually riding it for the first time today. Since you're right here, I'll lend it to you for a few days. How generous am I? So, how are you going to thank me? Bian Changxi naturally knew the origin of this motorcycle. In her previous life, he had constantly complained about leaving this beloved bike behind in Jiang City when he evacuated. Shed heard the story so many times that she remembered it clearly now. Though she couldn't get something as rugged as a Hummer or a Land Rover right now, this was still a decent alternative. She rubbed her chin. Is your friend free? Ask him to tone down the noise a bit, it's too loud. And did you bring money? Bian Quang pouted. In his opinion, a loud engine was cool. People could hear you coming from far away. But he obeyed anyway. To him, his cousin must have gone through some serious trauma. She'd been cold toward Bian Wei, had even cut her hair so short, and now she was acting like a queen. Whatever she said, he had to comply. He phoned someone to take the bike back for modifications, then pulled out a card and walked with Bian Changxi into the agricultural market. You said we couldn't draw attention, so I can only access a limited amount of money. It's all on this card, just over 100,000. Richer than me. It's enough. They entered a wholesale store. Bian Changxi casually browsed the shelves and pointed at several items. 5 boxes of compressed biscuits, 20 packs of these crackers, 2 boxes of Master Kong instant noodles, and 30 each of ready-to-eat beef cans, dried fish, salted duck eggs, marinated eggs, chicken legs, and sausages. The shop owner, seeing Bian Quang dressed like a wealthy customer, happily went to pack the order. He tugged at Bian Changxi's sleeve. Why are you buying all this? Are you boarding at school or something? You don't need this much food. I am moving out. Already rented a place. This is just enough to last a short while, she explained lightly. Bian Quang frowned, pulling her aside. You didn't see that post, did you? What post? That one called Apocalypse Approaching. Posted a little over an hour ago. Some idiot claimed the world would end at midnight tonight. The internet's gone wild trashing it. You're not seriously moving out because you believe that, are you? Bian Changxi's expression darkened slightly. Awkwardly enough, the idiot he was referring to was none other than herself. Yeah, I was just online, she replied calmly, then paused thoughtfully. Actually, this worked out perfectly. She ran to an internet cafe and sent an email to Bai Heng, warning him about the apocalypse. Hesitating for a moment, she then posted the warning online for everyone to see. She knew few would believe it, she just wanted to clear her conscience. But now, this was the perfect excuse. Her eyes flickered with an idea. Lowering her voice, she said, I hadn't thought of it before, I just wanted to live alone for a while. But now that you mention it, I am starting to feel uneasy. No wind, no waves. That post might not be fake. Look at how bad the flu's gotten, how panicked people are, how fast prices are rising. Stocking up on food won't hurt. Oh, and we should save some money to buy weapons. You have any connections? Bian Quang gaped. You're not serious, are you? Bian Changxi gave him a cool, level stare. Do I look like I'm joking? Leaving him stunned, she went on to buy 2 large bags of rice, 3 large water containers, 5 dozen bottled waters, several boxes of high-fat milk, compressed bread, and a tray of eggs. This would last a few weeks, plenty really. Truthfully, if she weren't worried about unexpected complications, she'd have only bought a few days' worth. In the early days of the apocalypse, food was easy to scavenge for anyone bold and capable. But she had other plans early on, no time to waste fighting over rations. Next, she headed to a seed shop and bought 1 packet of every kind of seed she could find. Bian Quang was utterly baffled. Bian Changxi gave an innocent shrug. Don't main characters in novels always have a farm or something? I should start preparing. Bian Quang nearly collapsed. Should I go buy saplings and fish fry too? I heard those pocket dimensions usually have mountains and lakes. Bian Changxi thought for a moment, then nodded. That's actually a good idea. Bian Quang. They didn't end up buying saplings or fish fry, too bizarre and not immediately necessary. Then she dragged Bian Quang to an outdoor gear store, where she bought several sets of lightweight, durable clothing, along with a few sleek military-style tactical hiking suits. She also picked up hiking boots, backpacks, solar-powered flashlights, compasses, lighters, and other essentials. All this spending already came to over 30,000 yuan. With the remaining money plus her own savings, they had about 80,000 left. Bian Quang had connections to get a makeshift handgun, but he absolutely refused to let Bian Changxi touch one. After much back-and-forth bargaining, she compromised and bought 3 authentic straight-bladed knives instead. One was a 20-inch rosewood straight blade, the other 2 silver-curved leg-holstered blades. She had the seller sharpen all of them. Truthfully, Bian Changxi had considered it carefully. She was already decent with a gun, but bullets were expendable. In the late apocalypse, firearms often became less practical than melee weapons. And in the early days, the military and law enforcement would still be strict, while criminal gangs ran rampant. Using a gun could bring unwanted trouble. Better to practice swordsmanship and build her body. After all, early-stage zombies weren't that strong. She should be able to handle them. With the 3 knives, the final 80,000 yuan was completely spent. Bian Changxi used a 100 yuan bill shed, kept hidden in her wallet to treat Bian Quang to a hearty outdoor barbecue. As she watched groups of people laughing and chatting under the bright lights, she squinted and smiled. If the apocalypse really comes, we'll never get to sit around eating barbecue like this again. Bian Quang took a swig from his beer bottle, grinning. So what? As long as you want it, no matter where we are or what's happening, I'll grill for you. Then, with childlike excitement, he added, Look at me. You've got me all worked up, like tomorrow really is the end of the world. But honestly, spending like this, it really feels like we're preparing to escape. Kind of fun, actually. A thought struck Bian Changxi. This is nothing. Real preparation means securing a vehicle, stockpiling fuel, gathering supplies by the warehouse load, and having a detailed survival plan. What we're doing is just scratching the surface. She paused. Too bad the Post said the apocalypse starts at midnight tonight. No time for anything grand. Bian Quang's eyes lit up. After a brief silence, he said firmly, If the end really comes, I'll immediately come pick you up and bring you back to the big house. Bian Changxi was startled. Absolutely not. I am fine on my own. Bian Quang thought she was just being stubborn and tried to argue, but then he laughed at himself. How could the apocalypse possibly be real? But Bian Changxi grew alert. She looked him straight in the eye. I am serious. If the apocalypse comes, look at all the preparations I've made. I won't die easily. But if I go back, you know those people would do anything to see me dead, just to divide my father's shares. Then it'd be safer alone. Even if they tolerated me, it'd have no status, no freedom. What kind of life is that? Bian Quang, if you truly care about me, don't come looking for me. At least not until you've built up some real strength. I don't want us both suffering humiliation. After the apocalypse, shares and companies would be worthless, and no one would scheme to harm her over wealth. But those people would also have nothing to lose and turn even more ruthless. The suffocating misery of returning to the Bian family and her past life still choked her like a fishbone in her throat. She would never endure that again. She clenched her fists tightly. In the apocalypse, strength was the only law. This life, she would awaken her ability early. No matter if it was still the wood element, she would walk the path of power. And the Jade Bracelet farm, she must develop it as quickly and thoroughly as possible. That would be her greatest advantage in the apocalypse. This time, no one would steal her treasures or take her life. Chuang 5 Bian Changxi had rented an apartment in Xinfeng district, a newly built residential area on the outskirts of the city. With few residents, it naturally had few zombies after the apocalypse, and its location fit perfectly with Bian Changxi's plans. She said goodbye to Bian Quang, pushed her modified homemade motorcycle to the foot of Building 5, parked it, and walked up the stairs to the third floor. Third floor, high enough to avoid easy attacks, yet not so high that escape would be difficult. Just right. Each floor had 4 small apartments facing each other across a central corridor. Bian Changxi lived in Unit 303. She took out her keys, unlocked the door, and glanced briefly at 304 across the hall. The only other occupants on this floor were a family of 4 living in 304. Having neighbors directly opposite would make it easier to monitor any trouble through the peephole. Inside, she flipped on the lights. The 1-bedroom apartment was fully furnished, though the living room was cluttered with items Shed bought earlier. She tossed a quick look around, set down 3 knives, pulled out a bottle of mineral water, took a few gulps, and sank onto the sofa. From her pocket, she took out a small wooden box. Inside lay a piece of mutton fat Jade Bracelet. The smooth, milky white jade shimmered softly under the ceiling light. It was a keepsake from her mother, said to have a long history. In her previous life, Bian Changxi had never figured out the bracelet's secret. Shed treated it only as a memento, carrying it with her until, 3 months into the apocalypse, she accidentally discovered it contained a storage space. After the apocalypse, humans gradually began manifesting abilities. Among them, spatial-type abilities were rarer and more valuable than the 5-element types. As a result, most ability users kept their power secret. Clueless at first, Bian Changxi assumed she had a spatial ability. Later, she accidentally discovered she could mentally plant seeds in the land within the space, though their growth rate was painfully slow. She never investigated further. Then she met Zhu Yunhua. A girl with some strange detection artifact around him uncovered her secret. After growing close, Zhu Yunhua's old classmate and tech-obsessed genius, Qi, expressed interest in studying the Jade Bracelet space. It was Qi's research that gradually expanded the space. Fertile soil, rivers, buildings, and warehouses appeared. The efficiency of farming and animal husbandry slowly improved, turning it into a true farm. Eventually, the farm's owner, herself, gained the ability to physically enter and exit the space. Because of this, although the ownership of the Jade Bracelet farm remained hers, its usage became accessible to others. Was that when Zhu Yunhua began coveting it? But Qi definitely hadn't succeeded in fully replicating it. She and the bracelet shared a deep bond. Once she died, the bracelet would be destroyed, and the farm, the warehouses, everything inside would collapse and vanish. She really wanted to see Zhu Yunhua's expression at that moment. It would surely be incredibly entertaining. A faint, cold smile flickered across Bian Changxi's lips, then faded as she sighed and pulled her thoughts back. Her gaze returned to the bracelet, her brow slightly furrowed. She didn't know how Yi had managed to expand the space. She couldn't even recall what had originally triggered her discovery of it. She turned the bracelet over in her hands, fingers tracing its surface, trying to activate some hidden mechanism. She even mentally visualized the farm from her past life and silently willed, "Enter." Nothing happened. She thought for a moment, then went to the kitchen, sliced open her index finger with a knife, and let a drop of blood fall onto the bracelet. The blood was absorbed. Her heart leapt, then nothing followed. Bian Changxi couldn't help but laugh bitterly. In her previous life, before discovering the space, she'd been injured many times, often dripping blood on the bracelet. Yet no space had ever appeared. Clearly, this wasn't the way. According to Yi, the blood might have completed the ownership bond, but it wasn't enough to unlock the space, let alone evolve it into a full farm. What do I need to do? Bian Changxi sank into thought. The farm was her greatest advantage in the coming apocalypse. It would determine whether she'd struggle miserably like everyone else, or live safely and comfortably with extra security. It was practically a cheat code, a built-in advantage, a paradise hidden from the world. Imagine, while others agonized over carrying a few supplies, she could stash everything in the farm and wear just a backpack as camouflage. When others entered bases and suffered agonizing over the supplies they had to surrender, no one would know she was secretly wealthy. In battles against zombies or other survivors, she could pull out ultimate weapons from the farm at any moment. While others were surrounded by zombies, fighting in filth and danger, she could retreat into the farm, eat and drink in peace, untouched even by a flood of apocalyptic proportions. Too many benefits. The farm was simply too important. She had to find a way to unlock it. Suddenly, she recalled a time when rice harvests in the farm had filled the base's first warehouse to the brim. Everyone had been ecstatic, throwing a celebration. Guy, drunk out of his mind, had looked at her regretfully and said, "What a waste. You wasted so much. If only you'd used the farm earlier. If I had the chance to go back to before the apocalypse, I'd find you and snatch this bracelet. I'd unlock it as fast as possible. You know how to unlock it?" "Not certain, but I am about 80 to 90% sure." Guy had suddenly turned serious, glanced around, and leaned in, holding up 3 fingers. "The first 3 days. Did you know? The strongest ability users in the apocalypse all awakened within the first 3 days after it began. Those 3 days were magical. Zombies were non-toxic, weak. Mutated animals and plants didn't exist yet. Yet the most powerful ability users kept emerging. It was like God gave humanity a buffer period, a chance to claim their gifts. The key to your farm was probably in that window. The only thing missing was activation energy. What kind of energy? Zombies. 5, no, 10 zombies, maybe even more. Kill them. Their energy will be absorbed directly by the bracelet. But who can be sure? Who can be sure? Bian Changxi murmured. She'd never taken his words seriously before. Time travel, a second chance, how absurd and dreamlike. Since it couldn't happen, why dwell on it? She'd always been someone who looked forward. Yet now, the impossible had actually happened. No matter what, I have to try. Apocalypse Mission 1. Kill 10 zombies within the first 3 days. Compared to the uncertainty of unlocking the farm, awakening her ability in the first 3 days was something she understood perfectly, thanks to Kie. That part was simple. So Mission 2. Awaken her ability within 3 days. In this lifetime, she would become strong. This was destined to be an unrestful night. Because of a post titled Apocalypse Arrival, people online were arguing, cursing, ignoring it, or laughing and making plans to welcome it together. Under the glow of city lights, in a luxury villa community on the city outskirts, one house was bustling with 7 or 8 young men and women. They directed cargo-laden trucks into the garage, while 2 people meticulously recorded the inventory. A red-haired guy ran over and punched Bian Quang on the shoulder. "Dude Quang, you actually believe that crap post? Running a fever or something?" Bian Quang didn't stop writing, smiling as he said, "Might as well do something fun. Doesn't it sound exciting? By the way, did you bring your car?" The redhead cursed, "I brought both the Land Rover and the Dingfeng truck. My old man nearly killed me for driving them out at midnight. You owe me one hell of a meal." A quiet, scholarly-looking young man turned from the truck, adjusted his glasses, and said, "That might be tough." Quang spent every penny he had and pulled every family connection. If the apocalypse doesn't come, he's going home to get beat. If it does come, we'll all be clinging to him for survival. Who's talking about meals? Bian Quang finished his last note, raised an eyebrow, and said, "We're almost set. Let's head into the villa. We'll see what happens at midnight." And as time ticked closer, in a sealed room somewhere on Earth, Curtains drawn tight. A computer glowed with a faint blue light. A pair of slender, elegant hands moved the mouse, habitually clicking open an email inbox where a new message had appeared. The owner of the hands paused in surprise, hesitated, then clicked it open. "Ahang, you must be shocked to receive an email from me." The hand on the mouse trembled slightly, as if stunned. Then it eagerly scrolled down. "These past 3 years, you've changed your number, your name, your identity, vanished from the world. The only link left between us seems to be this email. I've wanted to write to you so many times, but I held back. But this time, I know if I don't write now, it'll be too late. You'll probably be shocked, even stunned, when you read what's below. You might laugh, think I've gone insane. But everything I say is true. I wanted to tell someone close to me, but I couldn't. Call me cold-hearted, call me cruel, but if anyone let this slip, the consequences would be catastrophic. But to you, I can't hide it. I don't want to. For my sake, if there's anyone near you, ask them to leave. And whatever you do, keep the contents of this email a secret. Remember the Resident Evil movie we watched together? Back then I was so scared. I told you that if the world ever turned like that, I'd rather end myself before the worst came. But now, I have to tell you, the world we live in is about to become exactly like that. Chuang 6 May 20th, 2013, at the very last second. The apocalypse erupted. Those infected with the flu turned into the living dead. They had no intelligence, no emotions, slow and clumsy in movement, devoid of sensation, driven only by an insatiable, obsessive hunger for flesh. Yes, they were what people would come to call zombies. Besides the infected, a portion of healthy individuals also turned into zombies. Most of them had weak immune systems even before the end of the world. Together, they formed the first wave of the zombie outbreak, about 1/10 of the global population. Only destroying their brains or breaking their necks could truly kill them. A blood-curdling scream tore through the midnight air. Bian Changxi's eyes snapped open. She sat up in bed and reached over to shut off the alarm clock blaring beside her pillow. The time. Exactly 12 o'clock. Only a dim bedside lamp lit the room. Bian Changxi glanced around, then listened intently. The scream had come from the building across the courtyard, and it hadn't stopped. Shouts, curses, and cries mingled with it. Her heart tightened. She threw on a jacket, slipped into her slippers, and cautiously stepped out onto the balcony. The Xinfeng district was dimly lit by scattered street lamps, shrouded in haze. Immediately, she spotted the 4th floor of Building 3, where an orange glow flickered. A woman with disheveled hair was clawing her way toward the balcony, screaming for help. Something behind her was dragging her back. Suddenly, a head pushed into view from behind and sank its teeth savagely into the woman's neck. The woman screamed, thrashing wildly. In desperation, she grabbed what felt like a clothesline pole and drove it backward with all her strength. Then, seizing the moment, she scrambled onto the balcony and shrieked, "Stay back. Don't come near me." By the dim light, Bian Changxi saw the woman was drenched in blood, her neck nearly torn open, a ghastly sight. And the figure that emerged from the room after her was even more horrifying. It could no longer be called human. It moved sluggishly. Its eyes bulged from their sockets. Its skin was pale and festering, oozing foul fluids from its gaping mouth and eye sockets. Bian Changxi couldn't actually see these details so clearly. She was piecing the image together from memories of her past life. But the stench that rolled through the air as the creature appeared was unmistakable, nauseating. It opened its mouth wide and let out a guttural, chilling growl, then lunged eagerly at the woman. The woman screamed in utter despair, scrambling over the railing on all fours. With her eyes tightly shut, she jumped. Bian Changxi tensed, instinctively stepping forward with her hand outstretched, then froze mid-motion. Slowly, she pulled her hand back. She walked to the railing and looked down. The woman lay dead in the shrubbery below, motionless. Clearly, she hadn't survived the fall. Looking back up, the zombie was gnawing on a chunk of flesh it had torn from the woman's calf. After swallowing, it growled again and raised its arms toward Bian Changxi. Clearly, it had caught her human scent. Silence swallowed the neighborhood. Then, 2 seconds later, screams and retching echoed from every direction. Bian Changxi looked up. Lights flickered on in countless apartments. Heads leaned out of windows, people stood on balconies, many had seen at least part of the scene. The sight of someone leaping to their death in panic, followed by the grotesque, blood-drenched zombie, shattered their composure. It was like a horror movie come to life, beyond anything they could have imagined. Before anyone could regain their senses, tragedy erupted in more homes. Some zombies easily slaughtered their victims and feasted hungrily. Others battled entire families, fighting so fiercely it felt like the sky and earth were turning upside down. A man shouted from his balcony, "The end of the world. The end has come." That post was right, it's zombies. Everyone's turning into zombies. No one answered him. The residential complex security guards, alerted by the noise, came running with flashlights. When they spotted the woman's corpse, they rushed toward it in shock. The man screamed at them, "Don't get close. That woman was bitten by a zombie. She'll turn. She'll get up and bite you. Stay back. No, chop off her head now." Bian Changxi glanced over, surprised. The man lived right next door to the incident. He must have witnessed the entire thing, up close and in full detail. The zombie was now growling at him, and his reaction was understandably the fastest. But here was the thing, these early-stage zombies weren't toxic. Simply put, being bitten or scratched by this first wave didn't infect people. Victims either died outright and stayed dead, or if they survived, weren't turned. She looked down at the woman's body, a pang of regret striking her. If this woman had lived, she might have awakened an ability. Most of the strongest ability users in the apocalypse came from this exact scenario. Bitten by a zombie, survived, then awakened immense power. Later, the Capital's editorial board dubbed it the gift of the first victim. But there was a dark side. 3 days later, infected zombies appeared. By then, most people had grown complacent from encounters with non-toxic ones. They fought carelessly, ignored their injuries, and countless were infected. Those turned then bit their comrades, sparking chain reactions. The first massive human casualties of the apocalypse occurred 3 days after day 0. This tragedy became mockingly known as "God loves to lie." And Bian Changxi, the only one who knew the truth, had told only Bai Heng. Her eyes dimmed. She had long grown numb. Posting a simple warning online had been nothing more than a fleeting impulse after emailing Bai Heng, a momentary need to ease her conscience. Survival of the fittest. Wasn't that lie, in a way, nature's test of humanity? She had no intention of revealing fate secrets. But now, seeing someone die so vividly, so brutally, right before her eyes, she wavered. Should she find a way to speak up? How many lives could one message save? Bian Changxi silently returned to her bedroom. The new phone Bian Quang had insisted on buying her kept ringing. The caller ID read, "Bian Quang." She answered. His voice burst through, frantic and sharp. "Xiaozai. Xiaozai, are you okay? It's really happening. We've got zombies over here. We saw the whole thing through binoculars." "You're with others?" "Yeah. A few friends and I prepared some stuff, didn't expect." "Xiaozai, you're still in that neighborhood, right? Don't move. I am coming to get you, Bian Quang." Bian Changxi cut him off sharply. "Did you forget what I told you? Stay calm. Don't come for me. If you're prepared, then think things through. You can't do worse than people caught off guard. We both survive, no matter what. We'll meet again." Chuang 7, she lowered her voice. Be careful around the Bian family. Don't lose your temper and act recklessly, getting played without even realizing it. That said, sticking with the family group might be safer in the early days, up to you. And above all, train hard. Stay cautious at all times. Signal will be gone soon, electricity will cut out, and water will become contaminated and undrinkable. You need to be prepared. On the other end, the breathing hitched, then grew suddenly heavier. Xiaozai. Don't ask me how I know. Don't worry about me, I'll end up better off than you. That's all. She hung up and sat on the sofa, dazed for a while. In her previous life, Bian Quang had reportedly been out partying with friends on the night the apocalypse began. Yet he still managed to awaken his wind element ability within the first 3 days, made it back to the family estate safely, and eventually became one of the younger generation's strongest warriors in the Bian family. Now that Shed warned him, he should be fine. She had 2 secrets, her farm and her rebirth. She really didn't want to travel with anyone else, though teaming up with Bian Quang would have been a solid choice. Besides Bian Quang, Shed already warned Bai Heng and Chen Yisha. Only one person remained. Gusu. Setting aside those ambiguous feelings she owed him, Shed received his kindness, carried his debt. Now was the time to repay it. Yet fate was cruel. She had no idea where Gusu was or how to reach him. That was how fate liked to play its tricks. For Bai Heng, she felt regret and concern. For Bian Quang, sorrow and remorse. For Chen Yisha, pity and Chinese letter. But for Gusu, only deep, aching guilt. What even was their relationship? He was a base commander. She was a healing type ability user. They'd gone on missions together, partnered up. She admired his strength, and maybe, just maybe, he appreciated her independence. She couldn't be sure. They were closer than strangers, able to exchange a few words, but no more, until that one time he came to her, pleading. In his weakest, most desperate moment, he asked for her company. She hadn't understood what he was going through. Maybe he was just grasping at straws. But in the end, she turned him away. Years later, when he became an unmatched powerhouse, cold, solitary, his gaze as sharp as steel, she could never forget how Shed driven a broken, empty man out into the night. She exhaled, walked to the living room, and pressed her ear to the front door. After confirming no zombies were outside, she turned on the light and began packing. Into her hiking backpack, she placed 2 bottles of water, 2 cartons of milk, 2 packs of compressed biscuits and bread, plus a few packets of braised chicken legs, salted eggs, sausages, and chocolate. She added a spare set of clothes, a pair of binoculars, some bandages, and basic medicine. She wrapped the sheath of her rosewood straight blade in cloth, secured it with straps, and fastened it to her back. From a distance, it looked like nothing more than an unremarkable 50 to 60 centimeters long rod. One slim blade she slid into her boot, the other she strapped to the outer side of her right thigh. Once everything was ready, she checked the container's shed already filled with water. Then she curled up on the sofa and dozed off for a while. When dawn approached, she woke, cooked a bowl of white rice, steamed an egg custard, and ate a warm, comforting meal. After warming up and letting the food settle, she carefully opened the front door, glanced left and right, and slipped outside. The hallway was empty and quiet, showing no signs of disturbance. She glanced at the door across from hers. She hadn't heard any commotion last night, just a few panicked screams. Most likely, the people inside were still alive. She turned away and slowly made her way toward the stairwell. It was a newly built complex with few residents. Bian Changxi had once asked the landlord. On average, 7 people lived per floor. With 15 floors, that made 105 residents. If 1 in 10 turned into zombies, that would mean about 10. But that logic didn't quite hold. Most of the first wave of zombies came from flu patients, and those had already been sent to hospitals, which were now true hellscapes. In residential areas, the conversion rate was probably closer to 1 in 20 or even lower. Bian Changxi lived on the 3rd floor, If she was lucky, she wouldn't encounter a single zombie on her way down. If she was unlucky, well, zombies might be mindless and unable to open doors, but they could still climb stairs. Thinking this, she crept downstairs silently. The stairwell was completely empty. Not a sound escaped her as she made it safely to the second floor, then the first. But as she reached the locked glass door of the apartment building, she finally saw it, a pile of remains on the ground. It looked like a trendy young man. Flesh and bones were scattered, guts spilled across the floor. Even the glass door was smeared with dark, dried organs and bloody handprints. It was clear how desperately he struggled, harrowing to look at. Bian Changxi glanced at it, unmoved. Then she lifted her eyes. Sure enough, a female zombie was wandering nearby. The first wave of zombies didn't all rise at once. Roughly 1 in 10 of the population didn't turn at exactly midnight. Those with weaker immune systems would gradually transform over the next 3 days. This dead man and the zombie near him. Bian Changxi guessed they were a couple out late at night. Startled by a sudden zombie attack, they'd rushed back to the building. The woman must have turned midway. And since the ground floor glass door was locked, the man couldn't unlock it in time. He got devoured. Zombies had poor vision, but sharp hearing and smell. Generally, they were extremely sensitive to the scent of living beings and blood. Yet they also had a lazy nature. If they didn't detect new prey, even after finishing a meal, they'd just linger nearby instead of actively hunting. Of course, that was only true for low-tier zombies. High-tier ones later developed intelligence and would do things that left survivors horrified and hopeless. The moment she spotted the female zombie, Bian Changxi froze, afraid of drawing its attention. A zombie's strength and physical resilience were 2 to 3 times that of a normal human. They felt neither fatigue nor pain. Without solid combat skills, fighting one head-on was sheer fantasy. Bian Changxi lacked physical strength and stamina, but she had something better. Experience, mental fortitude, and cold-headedness. After 7 years in the apocalypse, killing zombies was as routine to her as chopping vegetables. Now, with sharp weapons in hand and zombies being slow and sluggish in movement and reaction, she still had a chance. The real danger was other zombies nearby. She scanned the floor and found a leftover piece of ceramic tile in the corner. She opened the window and hurled it outside. The loud crash of shattering tile echoed through the area. The female zombie lumbered slowly toward the sound. When it found nothing to eat, it stood stupidly in place, unmoving. Bian Changxi waited a moment. No other zombies appeared. She let out a quiet breath, unlocked the glass door, drew her straight blade from her back, and carefully stepped around the corpse, moving forward 1 step at a time. When she was about 7 or 8 meters away, the female zombie suddenly sensed something and slowly turned around. Its decay was far worse than the one shed seen yesterday on the 4th-floor balcony. One eyeball dangled outside its socket, facial muscles hanging in strips and shreds. Thick, yellowish pus oozed from its rotting mouth, and chunks of flesh clung between its sharp teeth, utterly grotesque. Most people couldn't bring themselves to fight zombies, not because of fear of death, but because of the revulsion. The thought of rotting flesh and foul fluids splattering onto their faces was unbearable. Suddenly remembered a meme, added a bit more flavor, so I revised Chapter 1, Chapter 6, and this chapter. You guys might want to take another look. Chuang ate a female zombie shrieked and lurched toward Bian Changxi. She took a deep breath and tilted her neck with a dry chuckle. Such slow movements. Such a blank expression. It's really nostalgic. Muttering to herself, she dashed forward, circling around the zombie's flank and slashing her straight blade across its arm. There was a sharp clang, like striking solid stone. The impact jolted up her arms, numbing them, and she immediately leapt backward. The cut had only penetrated a third of the way through the limb. The blade was too light. With a heavier axe, that arm would have been severed clean. Roaring louder in pain, the zombie advanced again. Bian Changxi repeated her tactic, striking the same wound a second time. Low-rank zombies were just like this, too dumb to adapt. Even after being wounded repeatedly, it kept lunging forward with outstretched arms. Again and again, she hacked at its limbs. Several times, she nearly got stuck pulling the blade free, or barely dodged its long, jagged claws slicing past her face. But eventually, both of its deadly hands were severed. She gasped for breath, shaking the numbness from her arms, retreating to maintain a safe distance. Staring at the crippled creature, she whispered, "Once I kill you, you'll become the activation energy for my farm." Suddenly, she surged forward, darting behind the zombie. With both hands raised high, she brought the blade down hard on its neck. It stuck halfway. The zombie staggered. Bian Changxi kicked it hard from behind. It crashed face first onto the ground, the blade springing loose. She pounced on its back, drew a second straight blade strapped to her thigh, and slid it through the existing gash in the neck, cutting down to the spine. The head rolled away with a sickening rattle. Bian Changxi stepped aside, leaning on her knees as she caught her breath. Too weak. Her hands trembled so badly she could barely grip the knife. Shed overexerted herself. "Whoa." A whistle echoed from across the street. She looked up. A man on the second floor was whistling at her. "Damn girl, you're something. Tough as hell." She shot him a cold glare. Seeing several others watching too, she picked up her weapon and retreated inside the apartment's glass doors, slumping against the wall to rest. "Too weak," she muttered. "With this level of skill, no wonder I didn't kill a single zombie in the first month of my past life." She'd always been frail. After her parents died in a plane crash, the grief overwhelmed her. Relatives swarmed like debt collectors, fighting over shares and inheritance. Heartbroken and furious, she fell gravely ill. If not for Bai Heng's devoted care, she might not have survived. For years, she battled one sickness after another, until she awakened her wood element ability. The naturally nurturing, soothing properties of wood energy slowly restored her health over time. That was one reason she focused on healing-type wood cultivation. In truth, wood abilities also had offensive, controlling, and planting variations, just like the other elemental types. It all depended on how one chose to develop. She needed to awaken her wood ability as soon as possible. But she had no idea if this life shed still inherit the same power. She picked up the severed arm shed taken from the female zombie. Rotting flesh. Pale exposed bones. Long, sharp fingernails, like steel blades, capable of piercing deep into human bone. The gift of an early victim. What if it didn't work this time? What if there were side effects? Doubts flickered through her mind, but her actions never hesitated. She dragged one of the nails across her left forearm. It stung sharply. Crimson blood welled up instantly, and the skin around the wound turned yellow, visibly rotting before her eyes, horrifying to look at. She pulled out a bandage from her backpack, wrapped the injury tightly, pulled down her sleeve, and sat with her legs drawn up, staring blankly at the white wall. Fortune favors the bold. Luck never falls into someone's lap for no reason. To gain something, risk is only natural. And if disaster struck, she was already mentally prepared to end herself before the worst could happen. A matte gray heavy motorcycle cruised steadily down the desolate street. The low, steady hum of the engine drew little attention until something ahead caught her eye. 3 zombies were surrounding a convenience store, hammering their fists against the glass door, slamming their heavy bodies into it. Clearly, someone was trapped inside. Bian Changxi slowed as she approached, observing carefully. All male zombies. In the old world, they were probably laborers or porters workers, massively built, extremely strong. One-on-one, she wouldn't stand a chance. But lone zombies were hard to come by, and this street was eerily quiet. This was as good an opportunity as any. Her hand brushed the small pouch at her waist, the wooden box containing the Jade Bracelet. Then she glanced at the fire axe strapped to the bike. Hesitation flickered in her mind. The people trapped inside heard the motorcycle and burst into hope. "Hey friend. Help us. We're stuck here with these 3 monsters. If you can lure just 1 or 2 away, we'll be forever grateful." It was only the 2nd day of the apocalypse. People were already venturing out for supplies, scouting the area. Since leaving the residential district, Shed encountered many like this. Now assessing the group, 4 men, 2 women, all in their early 20s, ragged and panicked, they were likely college students. And the fact they'd chosen this rundown commercial street, instead of heading straight for large supermarkets or malls, showed they had some sense. Her eyes swept over their makeshift weapons, hammers, iron rods, kitchen knives. Could work together, she thought. Suddenly, one of the 6 shouted excitedly, "Changxi. Is that you? Changxi. It's Yuan." She frowned slightly. She didn't recognize the man. "Changxi, help us." "It's me, Wang Yan. We were in the same class." A woman cried. Bian Changxi paused. "Classmate." She searched her memory. Yes, that name did ring a bell. And Yuan. Zhang Yuan. Her last boyfriend before the world ended. Back in her senior year, after her parents' plane crash, the massive inheritance brought unbearable pressure from her family, especially her dear uncle. There were even rumors of plots to murder her. To protect Bai Heng, Shed driven him away. To protect herself, Shed pretended to be a broken, careless girl, numb with grief, drowning in reckless relationships. Shed had many boyfriends. Changed them monthly, sometimes more often. Frequenting shady bars and clubs, acting like a delinquent. Looking back, it was all so absurd, so childish. If these were Zhang Yuan and Wang Yan, weren't the others probably students from S University? Maybe even people she knew. That was exactly why she didn't want to stop. She averted her gaze and sped up. "Changxi, don't go. Don't leave us." Was that really Bian Changxi? She's really leaving. How can she do this? An unopened soda can flew out through the broken glass, hurled at her. She dodged with a quick tilt of her head. But the clatter as it hit the ground caught the zombies' attention. They turned toward her, and the one at the back, spotting fresh prey, began shuffling slowly in her direction. Chuang 9 Bian Changxi glanced at the soda can that had rolled away, a flicker of surprise flashing in her eyes. She was at least 30 meters from the convenience store entrance. Throwing it that far meant the person likely had an awakened ability. Either they possessed one of the 5 elements with enhanced physical attributes, or they had a pure type strength ability. But then she smirked, slightly annoyed, pulling her motorcycle to a stop and turning to find the culprit. Inside the store, 5 people stared in shock at a thin, scrawny boy. There was no need to ask, he was clearly the one responsible. Under everyone's gaze, the boy turned red in the face and stammered, I just wanted her to stop." The boy who had first called out to Bian Changxi shot him a glare, then quickly apologized to her. "Sorry, friend. Our classmate didn't mean any harm." "Harm? What else would you call this?" Because of her stopping, the zombies had sensed hope. 2 of them abandoned the store and began shuffling toward her. As they drew close, Bian Changxi pointed at the apologetic boy, held up one finger, then pointed at herself and raised a second. Without another word, she unslung her backpack and dropped it by the roadside, put on her helmet, and drove forward to create distance. Then, in one swift motion, she spun the bike around and charged straight at one of the zombies. Bang! The zombie was sent flying. She slammed on the brakes, reversed, and precisely ran over both of its knees, crushing them completely. Without hesitation, she turned her attention to the second zombie. Unaware of the danger, the creature simply lurched forward, mouth gaping wide. A cold glint flashed behind the visor of Bian Changxi's helmet. She was about to ram it again, when suddenly her vision blurred. A violent wave of dizziness crashed into her skull, accompanied by searing, nearly unbearable pain from the wound on her left arm. Cold sweat broke out across her body. That brief lapse was enough. The zombie reached her, claws outstretched and grotesque. Bian Changxi yanked the straight blade from her back and sliced off several nails and one of its little fingers. In one fluid motion, she flipped off the motorcycle, used the blade to hook and cut the strap binding a fire axe to the bike, caught the axe in her left hand, and sprang backward to her feet. She gasped twice, sheathed the blade, switched the axe to her right hand, dodged twice, seized her chance, and buried the axe into the zombie's right shoulder. The creature roared and swung its left arm at her. She ducked low, slipped beneath its right armpit, and swung the axe in a full arc. The blade shrieked like a saw, slicing through flesh and bone. The zombie's entire right arm dangled, attached by only a strip of skin. Now behind it, Bian Changxi didn't pause. She swung the axe overhead with full force, cleaving through half the back of its skull. Brain matter splattered the ground. The zombie collapsed heavily. But she wasn't taking chances. Only after hacking off its entire head did she finally exhale. The lessons of her past life were clear. Only a decapitated zombie was a dead zombie. Leaning on the axe, she caught her breath and glanced back. The final zombie was approaching her. Meanwhile, the people inside the store, frozen in shock or perhaps horror, stood motionless. Two of them, a man and a woman, had even doubled over and started vomiting. She let out a cold, scornful laugh. The boy who had spoken to her snapped out of his daze, shouting, "Now's our chance. Are all 6 of us really going to stand here and let one girl fight our battles? If you're not a bunch of freeloaders, get out here and help me finish off the last one." His words, though dramatic, did the trick. Fired up, the others flung open the store door and rushed out, surrounding the last zombie. Bian Changxi ignored them. She methodically chopped off the head of the first zombie, whose knees shed crushed, then retrieved her backpack and righted her motorcycle. Leaning against it, cradling her injured left arm, she watched the scene with cold detachment. They weren't bad in a fight. The boy who'd shouted, clearly the leader of this 6-person group, positioned himself in front of the zombie, directing a female teammate to help him draw its attention. Meanwhile, Zhang Yuan and the scrawny boy who'd thrown the can launched attacks from behind. Zhang Yuan was the tall, handsome type with a slightly rebellious air. He came from money and usually hung out with a crowd of flashy friends. He looked fierce swinging a kitchen knife at the zombie, but his strikes did little real damage, pure showmanship. Exactly the kind of person Bian Changxi had once used to play out the reckless chapters of her own past life. In contrast, the thin boy wielded a hammer, delivering slow, heavy, deliberate blows. His expression was twisted with a kind of savage satisfaction, unsettling to watch, yet effective. Each strike dented the zombie's body. If only he were taller, a few solid hits to the head would have ended it. Bian Changxi watched for a moment and concluded. This skinny kid had definitely awakened a strength ability. In the apocalypse, abilities fell into 3 main categories: pure type, elemental, and special type. Pure type included strength, speed, and physical fortitude. These didn't manifest visibly, meaning pure type ability users were simply people whose physical traits surpassed normal humans. Often, they were those who already had advantages before the apocalypse. Athletes, enforcers, soldiers, cops, bodyguards, assassins. Because they were relatively common, pure type abilities were highly valued in the early days of the apocalypse. Many small, scattered factions were built around them. Elemental abilities, on the other hand, were far rarer. These were based on the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, including derivatives like ice from water, lightning from fire, wind, and mist. The defining trait of elemental users was the visible manifestation of their power. In her past life, Bian Changxi had the wood element. She could summon green vines and wooden spikes. Su Hong, a fire user, could launch fireballs and blades of flame. It was said that about 1 in 20 people awakened an elemental ability, and the derivative types were even rarer and stronger. Among them, lightning was considered the most prestigious. Then came special type abilities, which fell into only two broad categories. Psychic abilities, including telekinesis, mental eavesdropping and psychic scanning, and spatial abilities, such as basic storage space, spatial movement, or space folding. Special type abilities were the rarest, barely 1 in 100. They also tended to awaken the latest. If pure type abilities were an extension of pre-apocalypse advantages, elemental and spatial abilities came down to luck. Who got them, who didn't, and what type, none of that was within one's control. Psychic abilities, however, were the most intriguing and, in a way, the fairest. They could be cultivated through training. But only those with powerful elemental abilities themselves could ever hope to reach that threshold. Like Miss Kai Jiangmei in her past life, she had cultivated a psychic ability atop her ice element. Zhu Yunhua had developed a mental eavesdropping ability on top of his fire element. And then there was Gu Su. Bian Changxi sighed. The leader of Tengyang Base, known as the strongest man in China, Gu Su was a dual-attribute powerhouse with lightning and telekinesis. His strength was terrifying, so overwhelming that countless heroes could only dream of challenging him, yet all ended up lamenting their helplessness. Chuang Ten in the Apocalypse, there was a saying. Those who first awakened common-type abilities were essentially stuck that way for life, while elemental ability users could later develop common abilities on top of their own. As a result, the once popular common ability holders soon fell into disdain, because their potential was already exhausted, while even ordinary people still had hope of becoming powerful. That gossipy Capital editorial board had once likened ordinary folks and common ability users to fresh debutantes versus old housewives, sharply pointing out the vast difference in their future prospects. And by the 6th year of the apocalypse, if you didn't have a mental ability, you wouldn't even dare call yourself strong. Lost in thought, Bian Changxi was snapped back by a cheer from nearby. After the two who'd been vomiting joined the fight, the zombies were quickly defeated. The girl who'd thrown up looked at the scrawny boy with pure admiration. Ada, you were amazing. I saw everything. You practically took down the zombies all by yourself. The moment she said it, the others' expressions darkened slightly. The skinny boy hastily mumbled a few modest replies. The one who'd shouted earlier smiled and walked over to Bian Changxi. Thank you so much. Without your help, we wouldn't have lasted long at all. These monsters are too strong. We're barely able to handle one at a time. He paused, then quickly introduced himself. I am Cheng Heijun, a student at a university and the team leader here. That thin guy is Jode, my classmate. He acted on impulse earlier in the emergency. Please don't hold it against him. The guy with glasses is Wu Jai, and the girl with the ponytail is Jiang Hui. Wu Jai was the other one who'd vomited, plain-looking and shy. Jiang Hui had stayed close to Cheng Heijun throughout, fighting the zombies with fierce determination. She was drenched in sweat, disheveled but with flushed cheeks, somehow still refreshing to look at. Both were classmates of Cheng Heijun's, having escaped campus together. The remaining two were Wang Yan, the girl who'd vomited, and Zhang Yuwen. After Cheng Heijun finished introducing everyone, Bian Changxi glanced them over and simply said, hello. Goodbye, then swung herself onto her motorcycle and fired up the engine before Zhang Yuwen could even step closer. Cheng Heijun was stunned. He hadn't expected her to be so abrupt. Zhang Yuwen was even more surprised. Changxi, what are you doing here? I searched everywhere for you when we escaped the school. I was so worried. He subtly signaled Wang Yan with his eyes. She caught on immediately. Bian Changxi's combat performance just now had been impressive, exactly what their team needed. And while they were tagging along with a university's group, Changxi was from S University. If she joined them, their own status within the team would rise significantly. Though inwardly reluctant, she forced a smile and said, Yeah, Changxi. Yuan was so desperate looking for you. If we hadn't dragged him out, he'd still be stuck at school right now. Where have you been the past couple days? And why do you look like this? It's so dangerous being alone, why not stick with us? As she spoke, she stepped forward, trying to affectionately link arms with her. Bian Changxi gave her a faint, almost mocking smile. This woman was something else, her eyes burning with jealousy and resentment, yet pretending they were close friends. And when she glanced at the others, she wore an expression of smug pride, as if taking credit. Such a contradiction, truly laughable. And Zhang Yuan, now that he'd spoken, she remembered him vaguely. In her past life, he'd indeed escaped school early, in the same group as her. Back then, everyone was covered in dirt and chaos, focused only on survival, barely noticing who was beside them. In the middle of the fleeing crowd, Shed heard someone up front ask Zhang Yuan if he had a girlfriend he should be looking for. How had he answered? Oh, right, something like, I am about to die myself, who has time to worry about her? That sickly thing's going to kick the bucket anyway. Better she dies early and doesn't drag me down. She didn't feel angry, not really. After all, their so-called relationship had been nothing but pretense. Shed needed someone to make her look like a carefree, irresponsible rich girl, while Hidi wanted to flaunt dating a Bian family heiress. She hadn't even let him hold her hand, let alone develop any real feelings. But now, him lying straight to her face like this, now that was truly disgusting. She smoothly sidestepped Wang Yan's reach and said coolly, I have other things to do. I am leaving. With a slight nod to Cheng Heijun, she revved the engine and sped away, never once sparing Zhang Yuan a glance. They all stood frozen, watching her go. Wang Yan nudged Zhang Yuan. What's her problem? How do you even handle your girlfriend? So disrespectful. Zhang Yuan shot her a glare, then turned to Cheng Heijun with an apologetic smile. Sorry about that. Changxi just got a strong temper. I'll talk to her later and make her apologize to everyone. Then, almost imperceptibly, he glanced toward Jode. Cheng Heijun had sensed that Bian Changxi clearly didn't care about Zhang Yuan, but hearing him speak as if they were a couple made him uncertain. Don't worry about it, he said with a polite smile. He figured maybe Jode had offended her somehow. That could explain why Shed been so cold. We've got the food, he said. Let's move before more zombies show up. Oh, Yuan, was that girl your girlfriend? She's pretty skilled. What was she before all this? Oh, her. Zhang Yuan waved a hand dismissively. What could she be? Just a sophomore. She used to bug me to teach her some self-defense when we went out. Just basic stuff, really. Cheng Heijun raised an eyebrow, skeptical. Jiang Hui didn't even try to hide it, she snorted. She learned how to drive and swing an axe from you. Doesn't look like it. Zhang Yuan seethed inside but kept smiling, refusing to explain. Cheng Heijun quickly stepped in with a laugh, and the group of 6 moved out. Bian Changxi found an open, quiet spot and stopped her bike, propping one foot on the ground, ready to take off at any moment. Then she carefully rolled up her left sleeve. The white bandage was soaked through with blood. Her entire left arm was icy and throbbing, twitching occasionally in sharp spasms, excruciatingly painful. Her head felt heavy, dizzy, with a dull fever creeping in. Since last night, her wound hadn't healed. Instead, it had worsened, and new symptoms kept emerging, growing more intense each time they flared up, like just now. Only now did she recall something. In her past life, Shed heard from early awakened ability users, those who'd gained powers in the first 3 days, that the process hadn't been smooth. Some described it as agonizing, waves of discomfort, pain, even feeling like they were dying. Even later awakeners usually went through a painful transformation. She should have paid attention. But she had no experience. Her ability and the jade bangle space had come suddenly, silently, as if appearing overnight. She hadn't felt a thing. And because Shed been so desperate to awaken quickly, she hadn't thought carefully or prepared properly before acting. Regret was useless now. The real question was this her ability finally awakening? Or was she turning into a zombie? How much longer would this last? Could she even survive it? Chuang 11, she pressed her temples, a dull ache throbbing at her temples. The problem was, the farm still hadn't unlocked. Ever since she realized she might not have much time, Shed pushed herself to kill zombies non-stop, ignoring exhaustion, recklessly hunting them down. The neighborhood was small, other residents rarely came out, and she couldn't enter their apartments, so she patrolled the ground floors. After killing 2 zombies, Shed rushed back to Building 5, climb from floor to floor, find another zombie, kill it, then break into 2 more apartments showing signs of disturbance, killing 3 more. Yesterday alone, Shed taken down 6 zombies. This morning, she knew staying in the neighborhood any longer had no future. She hopped on her motorcycle, cut down 1 zombie en route, and just now killed 2 more on the commercial street. That brought her total to 9 zombies. 1 more. At least 1 more. Bian Changxi decided to quickly reach 10 kills and test whether she could unlock the farm. If it worked, Shed returned to her apartment in the complex and finally rest. If not, Shed have no choice but to keep pushing herself. She had to hold on. If she collapsed now, she had no idea whether Shed be able to get back up before the day ended. After the first 3 days, she wouldn't know what to do with the Jade Bracelet. She might truly have to say goodbye to the farm. That simply could not happen. She steeled herself, and through her dizziness, noticed several zombies staggering out from around a nearby corner. Damn! She must have stayed too long, her scent had drawn them in. She quickly mounted her bike and sped off. Luckily, the motorcycle had been modified to minimize noise. A regular one would have roared to life and alerted every zombie on the street. Suicide, plain and simple. Unfortunately, her luck wasn't great this time. Zombies appeared all along the way, but none were isolated. She didn't dare stop, just kept driving, searching for an opening. Suddenly, she reached the edge of a plaza. She squinted and recognized it, Student Plaza, on the outskirts of University Town. The area was wide open, and oddly, there wasn't a single zombie in sight. She glanced back as she passed. Beyond lay several university campuses, home to tens of thousands of students and thousands of zombies. As she turned a corner, something caught her eye inside a phone booth beside a bus stop. It was the silhouette of an elderly woman, standing motionless inside the booth. From the side, her face was pale, rotting, definitely a zombie. Bian Changxi's heart leapt. She scanned the area. This was the road to Jiang City Airport, desolate even before the apocalypse, now completely empty. A car sat parked by the roadside, likely driven here by the zombie when she was still human. A perfect opportunity. She dismounted 100 meters away, hefting her axe, and crept forward. The zombie stood with her back to the booth's door. Bian Changxi planned to quietly open it and take her down from behind. She approached carefully, held her breath, and gently pulled the door open. Adjusting her stance, she raised the axe, only for the zombie to slowly turn around. Bian Changxi clenched her lips, ready to strike, then froze. This zombie had short, shoulder-length hair. Her face was horribly decayed, unrecognizable, but atop her head sat a pair of crooked, frameless alloy glasses. Her suit was drenched in grime and bodily fluids. Bian Changxi sucked in a sharp breath. Zizhu. Counselor Zhu. The very same advisor who, just 2 days ago, had stood by her bedside scolding and lecturing her. The second person Shed seen after her rebirth. She shouldn't have been this shocked. Shed seen too many deaths, too many people who'd been close one moment and gone the next. In the apocalypse, there was no time for grief. To survive, you had to suppress your emotions and move forward, no choice, no hesitation. It wouldn't matter who stood before her. Unless it was Bai Heng or Bian Quang, she shouldn't have faltered. But damn it, she was feeling unwell, her focus scattered. That split-second hesitation cost her. By the time she snapped back to reality, the creature that was once Zhu was already lunging at her with a guttural roar. She raised the axe, but it only barely held the creature back at chest level. Its long nails dug into both her shoulders, tearing into the bone. Its foul, blood-stained jaws snapped toward her, reeking breath blasting her face. She dropped the axe. It was useless in such close quarters. One hand shoved against its neck, the other braced its jaw, pushing with all her might. But Counselor Zhu, though frail in life, now possessed monstrous strength. Bian Changxi was shoved backward, barely keeping those snapping teeth from her skin. With a loud crash, her back slammed into the car. Pain shot through her, making her grit her teeth. She glanced at the car window, then at the zombie, and suddenly ducked her head, relaxing her arms. The zombie, driven by momentum, plunged headfirst through the window, shattering the glass like a battering ram. Ignoring the claws still embedded in her shoulders, she twisted free through sheer pain, reached behind her, and went for her straight blade. But the moment she lifted her hand, searing agony exploded from both shoulders. Her body trembled, her arm dropping. She barely managed to look. Her shirt was torn, flesh mangled, white bone glinting beneath. At the same instant, the same pain flared in her left arm wound. 3 sources now, pain weaving through her nerves like a net. She nearly passed out. It felt like something inside her was trying to burst forth. This final metamorphosis, the emergence from the cocoon, was tearing her apart from within. "Don't pass out. Don't fall." She bit her lip hard, shook her head violently. Before her, the creature that was once Zhu pulled her head from the shattered window, glass shards clinging to her skull, and staggered forward step by step. Bian Changxi retreated. Suddenly, a deep, cold voice cut through from behind. "Get out of the way." Then came a whistling through the air, a wave of intense heat rushing toward her. Bian Changxi instinctively turned. At the intersection, dark figures appeared. A blazing, yellow-tinged fireball soared through the air. She narrowed her eyes, then widened them in shock. "What the hell? A fireball? Actually a fireball." She was tempted to curse. She'd woken up that first morning, endured all this agony, suffered like hell, and hadn't even gotten a wood-type ability. And now someone had already awakened a fire-type. Fire-type? The strongest of the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, water. Her head spun. One part of her mind screamed in outrage, while another calmly analyzed the situation. And then she realized, once that fireball hit the creature that was once Zhu, it would be over. The 10th zombie. The 10th energy source. The energy she needed to unlock the farm. Was it really going to be stolen by someone else? Without thinking, another part of her mind took over. She sidestepped sharply, throwing herself into the fireball's path. As the impact slammed her forward, she growled, her right hand flashing over her shoulder, drawing the rosewood straight blade in one fluid motion, then slashing downward in a fierce diagonal arc from upper right to lower left. Thick, foul liquid splattered across her face. She didn't know if Shed hit the zombie, if Shed killed it. All she knew was that after expending every ounce of strength, her body felt utterly hollow, collapsing like a puppet with its strings cut. The fall seemed endless, slow and weightless, as if she were floating. All pain lifted, dissolving into nothing. And all the exhaustion she'd been suppressing crashed over her in an instant. Chuang 12 Bian Changxi woke to a cacophony of noise. She cracked her eyes open. Above her stretched steel beams, from which hung a disc-shaped incandescent lamp. This place looked suspiciously like a warehouse. Figures moved at the edge of her vision. The sharp smell of rubber stung her nose, and snatches of conversation drifted toward her. When is she finally going to wake up? We're leaving tomorrow. Do we seriously have to take her with us? Wang Yan, don't say that. We were classmates, weren't we? She helped us before. We can't just abandon her here alone. Forget her, Heijun. Classmates. I've never seen someone so cold-blooded. But we can't go back on our word. We promised to take care of her, and we won't betray that promise halfway. What does being classmates even matter? Because we were classmates, I am speaking up. She got clawed by zombies. How long before she turns into one herself? How long before she dies? She's obviously dead weight. We're barely surviving as it is. How can we carry her? Zhang Yuan, tell them I'm right. Bian Changxi listened, dazed at first, but her mind gradually sharpened. So she'd been rescued, by Cheng Heijun and his group, it seemed. But something felt off. She distinctly remembered seeing a fireball before blacking out. The person who saved her must have awakened a fire-type ability. To manifest fire so precisely and powerfully on only the second day of the apocalypse, that person clearly had exceptional control. Anyone with that kind of skill, if they survived beyond the early days, would undoubtedly rise to prominence in this new world. Was someone like that really traveling with Cheng Heijun's group? She shelved the question for now and closed her eyes again, focusing inward to assess her condition. She was lying in a corner, covered by a thin blanket. Beneath her was another. She wiggled her fingers, fully responsive. Pain and a faint itch lingered in her shoulders and left arm, a sign they were healing. Relief washed over her. She concentrated, gently probing her body, and felt it, a soft, warm energy, gentle and soothing, flowing slowly through her veins. It was as delicate as a wisp of smoke, no thicker than a dozen strands of hair. When she focused too hard, it seemed to vanish. But when she stilled her breath and waited, it became palpable again, languidly drifting through her, leaving behind a trail of comfort, making her feel so light she could leap 3 feet into the air. Bian Changxi's heart soared. Her wood element ability was back. Newly awakened ability users rarely sensed the energy within them. Most only realized they had powers when their abilities took physical form. But Bian Changxi was different. With 7 years of experience from her past life, she could almost instantly locate that dormant force with a single focused breath. It felt familiar, deep in her bones. Though still incredibly weak, there was no mistaking it. She desperately wanted to summon her wood essence, the little green vine, and hug it tightly. But she held back. Without a sound, she directed the energy to her wounded shoulders and left arm. A cool, nourishing sensation seeped into the injuries, and they began healing at several times the normal rate. Reassured, she reached down to her waist. Wait, where was the wooden box? She sat up abruptly, throwing off the blanket. The small pouch that had been strapped to her waist was gone. The group, previously arguing, fell silent as they noticed she was awake. They stared stunned. Cheng Heijun let out a sigh of relief. Changxi, you're finally awake. Jiang Hui beside him looked equally delighted. The others, strangers to her, reacted in their own ways. Wang Yan, the one who'd wanted to leave her behind, stiffened, her eyes blazing with resentment. Zhang Yuan, who had said nothing until now, rushed over, suddenly eager. Changxi, how are you feeling? You've been unconscious for a full day, and a night I was so worried. Bian Changxi didn't see any sign of that worry on his face. She glanced at him, then turned to speak to Cheng Heijun, but suddenly she noticed something strange. She was still wearing her old clothes, torn at the shoulders, barely clinging to her body. The wounds beneath had healed about half to 2/3 of the way, but the scars were still raw and gruesome. It was an indecent sight. Zhang Yuan quickly took off his outer jacket, ready to drape it over her. She raised a hand to stop him and asked Cheng Heijun, Captain Cheng, where are my things? Cheng Heijun looked briefly confused. Jiang Hui immediately said, I've got them. She hurried to another corner, rummaging through a pile of backpacks and supplies. I kept everything safe for you, no one touched it. Bian Changxi took the chance to survey her surroundings. This was indeed a large warehouse. The main door stood open, people coming and going. The fading light suggested evening. Elsewhere in the space, small clusters of people sat together, mostly in their early 20s. It was easy for her to tell they were a group of students who had fled together, perhaps not all from the same school, drawn together by chance on the road. In her past life, she and Chen Yisha had been just like them. She was in one corner of the warehouse. Nearby sat a stack of black tires, and not far from that, Chang Hejun's group. Besides the 6 Shed already seen, nearly 20 more had joined. Zhang Yuan had said Shed been out for a day and a night, so these people must have arrived afterward. Clearly, they all looked to Chang Hejun as their leader. Now they sat on the floor, chatting, sorting supplies, or simply staring blankly, some wiping silent tears. One person quietly set up a pot to cook instant noodles. Every face bore signs of exhaustion and fear. Blood stains speckled their clothes and cheeks, no doubt from recent zombie encounters. The mingled scents of food and rubber made the air in the warehouse even more oppressive. Bian Changxi remembered how, in her past life, she had been just like them, struggling silently, gripped by panic and hope, enduring pain, fighting to survive again and again, growing stronger out of sheer will, yet never knowing where the road led. Wanting to find strength and warmth in others, yet distrusting everyone with every fiber of her being. Now, recalling that time, it felt like another lifetime. Her heart softened. She turned to Chang Hejun. "Captain Cheng, you were the one who saved me." Wang Yan sneered, "Who else?" Chang Hejun shot her a sharp look, then turned back to Bian Changxi, his expression tinged with shame. "It wasn't us who saved you. After we split up yesterday, we went back to University Town to check on the school. On the way, we ran into 5 young men. One of them was carrying you, unconscious on his back." He hesitated, his face reddening with embarrassment. Zhang Yuan quickly stepped in. "I recognized you immediately. Those guys seemed to be in a hurry, so they handed you over to us for care." "Changxi, how do you know them?" "They gave me a military vibe." "Yeah, exactly." A girl chimed in. They all had this intense presence, wearing special combat gear, carrying real firearms. I didn't even dare look them in the eye. Luckily, their leader was pretty approachable. Bian Changxi frowned. Her suspicion was confirmed. Her real saviors were someone else. 5 soldiers. A fireball, soldiers, University Town. Something flickered in her mind, but she couldn't piece it together. Seeing the way Chang Hejun and Zhang Yuan seemed to be hiding something, her suspicion deepened. Did they leave their names? Just then, Jiang Hui returned, holding Bian Changxi's hiking backpack. "Is this yours?" "Yes, thank you." Bian Changxi took it eagerly. On top was a spare black jacket. She set it aside. Then she spotted the small black pouch still attached to her waist. Her heart pounded. Had the Jade Bracelet farm activated yet? What if it had failed? What would she do then? No, it couldn't have failed. She clearly remembered killing the zombie counselor Zhu and absorbing the 10th energy point. Still, when she opened the wooden box, her blood ran cold. She froze, her face draining of color. "My Jade Bracelet, where is it?" Chuang 13 people turned to look in the direction of Bian Changxi's startled cry. Inside the flat little box lay yellow satin lining, with a circular indentation carved all around its rim. Anyone could tell something like a bracelet had once been placed there. But now, the box was completely empty. Bian Changxi's face turned pale. Her lips trembled as she turned her backpack upside down. Food spilled out, and more food, nothing else. Not a single fragment of the Jade Bracelet could be found. She grabbed Jiang Hui and asked, "Are all my things here?" Startled by the cold, panicked expression on her face, Jiang Hui quickly nodded. "Except for the motorcycle and weapons we borrowed briefly, Heijun made sure no one touched your other belongings." "Right, Heijun." Cheng Heijun nodded. "I specifically gave orders." "Did anyone here touch Bian's Jade Bracelet?" "No." At a time like this, who'd care about some useless bracelet? "It's not edible or drinkable." "What did it even look like?" "Maybe we can help you look." Zhang Yuan suddenly said, "Could it be you lost it earlier? Or maybe those soldiers took it?" Cheng Heijun said uncertainly, "Those men seemed pretty upright." Zhang Yuan sneered, "How many people these days look decent on the outside, but are rotten within?" Cheng Heijun still refused to believe it, but Bian Changxi felt a chill crawl through her entire body. She remembered, back in her past life, Zhu Yunhua had a girl beside him with a special ability to detect treasures. It was she who had discovered the extraordinary nature of the Jade Bracelet. Could it be that among those soldiers, there was someone with a similar power? Or perhaps after she fell unconscious, the bracelet somehow changed, making them think it was a rare treasure worth seizing. No. The Jade Bracelet farm belonged to her. No one else had the right to covet it. Her bracelet. Her bracelet. Suddenly, Bian Changxi felt an odd pull, as if something was drawing her in. She lifted her head and scanned the room, then fixed her gaze on Wang Yan. More precisely, on the red leather backpack slung over her shoulder. Could it be? She pressed her lips together, abruptly stood up, and strode forward, yanking the backpack off Wang Yan's shoulder. It was stuffed full: tissues, cosmetics, glasses, candy, sanitary pads. She dumped them out one by one onto the floor. Wang Yan froze for a moment, then shrieked and lunged at her. You crazy bitch. What are you doing? Give me back my bag. Bian Changxi suddenly stopped. From the very bottom of the bag, she pulled out a jade bracelet. Its smooth, creamy white luster stood out vividly in the dim warehouse, exactly hers. She examined it carefully, then let out a long breath of relief, a mocking smile forming. Care to explain this? Wang Yan's face turned from pale to green and back again. She stubbornly argued, explain what? This bracelet was mine to begin with. Is that so? Bian Changxi tossed the bag aside and slipped the bracelet onto her left wrist. Covering it with her right hand, she sent a pulse of spiritual energy inward, and instantly felt her consciousness drawn into a vast space. Her heart surged with joy. The farm had activated. No, not necessarily the full farm, but at least the jade bracelet's spatial dimension was intact. Bian Changxi couldn't wait to step inside and check everything. A wave of comfort washed over her, and she felt better than she had in years. But she kept her expression cold and calmly fixed Wang Yan with a piercing stare. Had this woman stolen it out of greed? Or had she discovered something? That gaze felt like an icy dagger, like a bolt of lightning. Wang Yan shuddered from head to toe, then angrily pointed at Bian Changxi. We took you in out of kindness. Gave you food, water, a place to sleep, even assigned someone to watch over you. And this is how you repay us. Over a cheap bracelet, you humiliate me like this. Let me tell you, one way or another, I am claiming that bracelet. If you don't hand it over, you can forget staying in our team. Everyone stared at her in stunned silence. Suddenly, a voice from the back of the warehouse scoffed, "What claim? Didn't those soldiers already pay you for your help?" Wang Yan's face stiffened. She turned and spat at the speaker. They paid their part, she pays hers. Mind your own business and stop interfering with our team. Bian Changxi finally understood. She turned to Cheng Heijun. Reward. So you took someone else's payment just to take me in. Cheng Heijun's face flushed red. Seeing this, Jiang Hui quickly stepped forward to mediate. Bian, it's not what you think. Zhang Yuan also grabbed her hand urgently, frantically signaling her with his eyes. We're all classmates. We have to stick together from now on. Changxi, just let it go. Wang Yan likes the bracelet, just give it to her. It's not valuable anymore anyway. Bian Changxi looked at him as if he were an idiot. Zhang Yuan felt a knot of frustration tighten in his chest, mixed with deep resentment. Why wouldn't she show him any respect? It was like yesterday all over again. What did she think she was, still the precious Miss Bian from a wealthy family? Did she really believe a car and a few knives were enough to survive on her own? What a joke. In the end, a sickly, inexperienced college girl like her would still have to depend on the team. Picking a fight like this now, how would it end? It would only make him suffer by association. Besides, earlier, when she faced the zombies, the courage and skill she'd shown had intrigued him. There was something different about this so-called girlfriend of his, cold, sharp, commanding. Almost attractive. And that thought had sparked a desire to control her. If he was the one who brought her into the team, and the one who smoothed things over now, then from now on, she'd have to rely on him. If she turned out to be capable, he'd be the first to benefit. If she was still useless deadweight, he had countless ways to get rid of her. Especially that thing he'd discussed with Wang Yan. It had to happen. His mind raced, his eyes gleaming as he stared at the bracelet on Bian Changxi's wrist. He deeply regretted not telling Wang Yan to hide it better. How could he have known she'd somehow sense it was in that bag, and have the audacity to snatch it back in broad daylight? Seeing the other team members glancing at him, their expressions cold and disapproving toward Bian Changxi, his confidence surged. Standing tall, he declared, "Changxi, we should be grateful to those who help us. You were covered in wounds, half your shoulder nearly burned to charcoal, running a high fever, unconscious. If it weren't for our careful care, do you think you'd have survived? The fact that you're standing here today is all thanks to us. Wang Yan is just asking for a simple bracelet, yet you won't even give her that. How selfish can you be? How can we trust you going forward? I am truly disappointed in you." He said nothing about the so-called reward, instead painting Bian Changxi as ungrateful and morally bankrupt. Wang Yan caught on quickly. Her eyes flickered, then she suddenly covered her face and burst into loud sobs, drawing everyone's attention. "Changxi, we used to be so close. We ate together, slept together. You even promised me, on my birthday, you'd give me that bracelet as a gift. Have you forgotten? I really love it, that's why I took it. I know it was wrong to take it without asking, but if you're upset, couldn't we talk about it privately, just between sisters? Why humiliate me like this in front of everyone?" Chuang 14 Bian Changxi stared at Wang Yan with a strange look in her eyes, then glanced at the hostile and disdainful glances from Cheng Heijian's team. Seeing the rest of the warehouse crowd gathering around for the spectacle, she let out a cold snort, lowered her head, touched the right side of her eyebrow, and muttered with a slow shake of her head. How ridiculously pathetic. Just by shedding a few tears, the thief had turned herself into the victim, while the one who was actually robbed was now painted as ungrateful and heartless. She couldn't believe how effective crying could be. Even more absurd was that the audience actually seemed to buy it, nodding along as if it all made perfect sense. Was this what they called usurping the host's role? Had they already assumed she had no choice but to travel with their team, that she depended on them, so they decided to gang up and put her in her place from the start? If it had been someone else, they'd probably have swallowed even the greatest injustice in silence, wouldn't they? That was exactly why she hated group travel. The more people, the more pointless, aggravating messes cropped up. Maybe the pressure of the apocalypse was just too great. People needed entertainment and an outlet, so they made drama out of nothing. If you've got the guts, go kill some zombies. Who has the time and energy to waste on this nonsense? Bian Changxi truly couldn't fathom what went on in these people's heads. Still, most others were probably just instinctively wary of new team members. But Wang Yan and Zhang Yuan clinging onto her jade bracelet like that, Wang Yan's fake crying face darkened. She asked timidly, "Changxi, are you insulting us?" Bian Changxi gave her a long, penetrating look. Without a word, she turned and picked up her spare black outfit from the ground, pulled it on, and began buttoning it up one by one. She rolled up her sleeves with deliberate calm, then shot a sidelong glance at Wang Yan. "I wasn't insulting you. I was cursing myself for wasting my breath on a fool like you." She turned to Cheng Heijian with a faint smile. "Team leader Cheng, are you sure you won't control your teammates? Otherwise, I can't promise I won't lose my temper." The onlookers murmured with excitement. A fight was about to break out. Most of them were college students, some gentle as lambs, some rowdy, but none had ever seen someone act like a street thug, picking fights out of nowhere. The crowd grew animated, whistling and clapping. Those who knew the backstory quietly whispered to their companions about Bian Changxi's identity and past. Cheng Hejin's face turned dark red with anger, but before he could say anything, Wang Yan suddenly lunged forward, grabbing at Bian Changxi's jade bracelet and snarling, "Who the hell are you calling a fool? You're the damn fool. So what if you're Miss Bian from the big shot family? You're just a pathetic orphan with no parents. It's been 3 days, and not a single soul from your family has come looking for you, have they? You've already been abandoned, so what are you even proud of? If you've got the guts, hit me." A sharp light flashed in Bian Changxi's eyes. Her left wrist, gripped in pain, twisted outward from within Wang Yan's grasp, locking onto the girl's right forearm and yanking her forward. Her right hand slammed down on Wang Yan's left shoulder, flipping her over, while her foot hooked behind Wang Yan's right heel. With a piercing scream, Wang Yan crashed heavily onto the ground. "Oh, eh?" Wang Yan felt like half her ass was shattered. She lay there, too stunned to move. Bian Changxi stepped back, eyes cold as she stared down at her. "If you're going to resent the rich, at least keep it subtle. Being this crude, it makes both of us look bad." Wang Yan was an out-of-town student. Rumor had it her family ran a supermarket or something, maybe middle class at best. Compared to the Bian family, Jiang City's wealthiest clan, influential across southern China's entire economic network, there was no comparison. Wang Yan's usual hobby was either showing off fake wealth or provoking rich kids like Bian Changxi. And unfortunately for her, Bian Changxi was indeed an overlooked, powerless member of her own family, making her the perfect target. But one thing Bian Changxi could never tolerate: people bringing up her deceased parents. She looked at her own hand. Awakening her wood-type ability had clearly boosted her strength, now roughly on par with an average man's. She glanced at Zhang Yuan, who stood frozen in shock. He flinched, stepped back, and accidentally stomped on someone's foot, causing a brief scramble. Once he regained his balance, he raised a blade toward her. It was her own rosewood straight blade. Several others behind him also stood up, weapons in hand, while bystanders quietly backed away. "My knife. My axe. You even used my car. You really don't hold back, do you?" Bian Changxi mocked, eyeing their weapons. This sealed it. She was determined to travel alone from now on. Too many people were just too much of a headache. Cheng Hejin stood dumbfounded as the situation spiraled out of control. He rushed forward, desperate. "What are you all doing? Put the weapons down. We're all on the same side here." "We're not on the same side," Bian Changxi shot back, smirking. She turned to the crowd. "Earlier, someone mentioned the reward for rescuing me had already been paid. Could that person explain the details to me?" "It was me. It was me." A short, chubby girl pushed her way out of the crowd, though she kept a safe distance from Bian Changxi. She gave her a quick once-over and smiled. "Yesterday, someone in our team got scratched by a zombie and ran a high fever, so we went out looking for medicine. On the way, we ran into Cheng's team and joined up." She stuck out her tongue playfully. "Not long after, we met those 5 people. They asked for directions, and Cheng's team recognized you. The soldiers seemed unable to carry you with them, but then Zhang Yuan pulled out a photo of the 2 of you, so they handed you over to your boyfriend for care." The girl paused, glancing at Wang Yan, who was now being helped to her feet. This woman wasn't happy at all. "Said you were as good as dead, just a burden. But if they insisted on taking you, fine, on the condition that the soldiers leave behind 2 guns. Bian Changxi narrowed her eyes. "And they agreed. You got lucky." The soldier team leader negotiated with Cheng, and in the end agreed to leave behind 1 handgun, 5 bullets, and 2 communicators. Said they worked through satellite signals, super advanced tech, still functional even now. After the girl finished speaking, the warehouse fell silent. Cheng Hejin's team looked ashamed. Zhang Yuan and Wang Yan's faces turned ashen. Everyone understood, after the apocalypse, guns meant survival. And when phones and networks were dead, communication devices were priceless. No wonder so many people were jealous, especially the girls' own team, who had witnessed everything firsthand. Someone sighed. So that's how it was. They keep saying they saved her, but seriously, what nerve? Exactly. They were basically hired help. Well, not entirely. If they'd been heartless, they could have taken the stuff and abandoned her. The chubby girl quickly added, they wouldn't dare. The soldier team leader said his name was Gusu. He even asked Cheng's name and warned him, if he ever found out Cheng had left you behind, he wouldn't let him off. Cheng Heijun flushed with shame. I didn't want any of it. We're classmates, and you've helped us before. It was Wang Yan pushing for it, and the soldiers seemed in a real hurry. I didn't even have time to stop them before they left. He remembered how coldly that team leader had said, that's all we can spare, and he wanted to dig a hole and bury himself. All Wang Yan's fault, Shed humiliated him completely. Then again, he hadn't expected the man to act so fast, drop off the items and vanish in seconds, while he stood there stunned, unable to chase or even shout, afraid of attracting zombies. He pulled out a small bag from his pocket. Inside was a black handgun, 5 golden bullets, and 2 watch-like devices. I didn't touch any of it. I was planning to return it to them. Now, I'll give it to you. The room fell dead silent. Bian Changxi felt dozens of eyes boring into her. Members of Cheng Heijun's team glared with open hostility, as if daring her to reach out. She barely noticed. Her gaze fixed on the bag, stunned. No way. Shed actually met decent people. This was a gun. In the early apocalypse, a single bullet could mean the difference between life and death. And someone actually gave it up. A strange warmth stirred in her chest. She silently vowed that if she ever had the chance, she'd properly thank that Gu. Wait, Gusu. Chuang 15 Gusu. The Gusu she knew. Bian Changxi was stunned. Suddenly, she understood what had flashed through her mind earlier. It was said that before the apocalypse, Gusu had been a special forces soldier. He and 4 comrades were on a mission when the world ended. Naturally, the mission was abandoned. He wasn't the kind to cling to protocol. His first thought wasn't to report back to base, but to find his own family and those of his teammates. After all, the world had turned into something unrecognizable, something terrifying. It was rumored that their first stop was a certain university, because Gu Su's younger brother, Gu Pei, studied there. Even more rumored was that Gu Su had originally awakened a fire-type ability, but later somehow evolved into a lightning element user. Such a transformation was unheard of for others. Time passed, people changed, and few remembered the truth, let alone believed it. Bian Changxi did know, but over the years, Gu Su's image as a warrior who struck like thunder had become so deeply ingrained that Shed completely forgotten his origins. So that fireball Shed seen before losing consciousness. She had actually encountered Gusu. And he had saved her. The realization hit her like a tidal wave, like a terminally ill pauper suddenly being told, hey buddy, lucky you. The national leader just toured this area and personally paid off your medical bills. An indescribable feeling. Or perhaps it was that moment of after 1,000 searches, suddenly finding what you sought. All Bian Changxi could think was that in her previous life, she had also received Gu Su's kindness. One favor piled upon another, how could she ever repay such a debt? Her heartbeat quickened, though her expression remained calm. She turned to the plump girl and asked, what does this Gu Su look like? At the question, the girl's eyes lit up. Her round face flushed with excitement as she gestured animatedly. Around 25, over 180 centimeters tall, incredibly handsome, sharp, striking features. He looks cold and serious. I'd believe he was some celebrity. Can you imagine? A soldier. We all thought it was a waste of good looks. She sighed. He asked us how to get to C University, and if we knew a male student named Gupe. Unfortunately, none of us had heard of him, otherwise we could have helped. He was about to ask someone else when Captain Cheng recognized you, and the conversation shifted. She wore a look of deep regret. C University was a prestigious, well-known institution. Though it was in the same university town, it was worlds apart from second-tier schools like a university or the elite-dominated S University. There was little communication between them. Bian Changxi felt a sudden warmth in her eyes. Everything matched perfectly. This was the person she had been searching for. The one she wanted to make amends with, to repay. The reason Gu Su's early story was so widely discussed was simple. After rescuing his brother Gu Pei, they learned that several of Gu Pei's friends still had family in the city center. Gu Pei pleaded with his brother to help, and so the group pressed into downtown to search. In the apocalypse, cities were death traps for survivors. Especially after infected zombies appeared on the fourth day, the urban core became a forbidden zone. Gu Su's team fell victim to those monsters. Most of the civilians died, and 2 of the 5 soldiers perished, devastating losses. Of the 2 surviving comrades, one grew resentful and later betrayed Gu Su. The other died in that betrayal. Gu Su's younger brother, overwhelmed by guilt, made a fatal mistake during a zombie swarm attack and died within a year. Thus, the man who would become a peerless powerhouse ended up utterly alone. Anyone who heard this story couldn't help but sigh. The Capital's editorial board later dubbed it the tragedy of a king. In truth, Gu Su's tale mirrored countless others. In the apocalypse, separation and loss were so common they numbed the soul, so frequent that people could no longer speak of them, and instead poured their grief into stories like Gu Su's. Judging by the timeline, the tragedy of a king was about to unfold. This was why Bian Changxi was so agitated, and why she felt so relieved to have arrived in time. After a brief pause, she made up her mind. Turning to Cheng Heijun, she asked Captain Cheng, "Can this communicator reach Gu Su?" "I'd like to thank him in person." Cheng Heijun quickly replied, "I've never used it, so I don't know." He pulled out the 2 wristwatch-like devices. Bian Changxi, who had struggled terribly in her past life, had never seen such technology before. But she knew that within 2 or 3 months after the apocalypse, all conventional communication devices failed. It wasn't until the 3rd year that the Capital's Research Institute developed a new device, powered by crystal cores harvested from the brains of infected zombies. Technology entirely different from anything before. She snatched one and fiddled with it. The communicator's small LCD screen lit up. Scrolling through the contact list, the very first entry read, "Captain Gu." Her eyes tightened. Her heart pounded. She turned to Cheng Heijun. "Captain Cheng, could we speak privately for a moment?" Cheng Heijun looked confused, but obediently followed her to the side. Bian Changxi observed him silently. This man had managed to gather a group of people, proof of some leadership ability. But the characters in his team were questionable. The way they argued with him, and he did little to control them, showed he was still inexperienced. She couldn't judge his decision to collect payment without knowing the full context. But the fact that he handed her the reward openly, if genuine, meant he might be worth forming a temporary alliance with. If it was just an act, a calculated move. She pressed her lips together, then whispered, "Captain Cheng, I am truly grateful you took me in. But as you can see, I don't get along with your team members. It's getting dark soon, and I'd like to leave. My car and a few weapons, I was wondering if..." Cheng Heijun looked at her helplessly. "You really can't stay. Tomorrow, our group is relocating to the North City New Zone. Traveling together would offer better protection." Bian Changxi frowned. "To the New Zone." "That's right," Cheng Heijun said. "We just heard the broadcast this morning. The government doesn't think they can contain this flu outbreak and are preparing for the worst. They're telling all Jiang City residents to evacuate the downtown area and head to the North City New Zone. If the situation worsens, the military will come to evacuate us from there. They say Sioux City will be safer. Bian Changxi recalled she had heard this evacuation order in her previous life too. But back then, most of her team didn't trust the government. Everyone wanted to search for their families first. By the time they realized Jiang City was no longer survivable, after being decimated by infected zombies, the military had already left. They were forced to organize their own desperate, life-or-death escape to Sioux City. The new zone was at the northern edge of Jiang City. It wasn't far, just 2 or 3 hours drive north via the highway. Beyond that lay Sioux City. Of course, even crossing into Sioux City's territory didn't mean reaching the actual Sioux City base. It was still a long way off. Bian Changxi said, "It's still quite a distance from here to the new zone." Cheng Heijin gave a bitter smile. "Yeah. We don't know how many monsters are out there, or what the road conditions are like. That's why we're planning to leave early tomorrow morning. Most of us aren't from Jiang City anyway, our families are elsewhere. We'll have to leave sooner or later. Better to act now. Besides our warehouse, there are others nearby. We've already agreed to travel together. It'll give us some protection." Chuang 16 Bian Changxi nodded, though inwardly she was thinking. The infected zombies would appear tomorrow. If their team acted then, one misstep could lead to heavy casualties. But if they didn't leave by tomorrow, the number of zombies would explode exponentially, leaving even less chance of survival. So many people had missed their window and ended up trapped and killed in the city. In her previous life, Shed managed to escape despite having no abilities and no physical strength, all while enduring hostility and disdain from her teammates. Chen Yisha's unwavering loyalty had been one reason, but even more, it had been sheer luck. Her eyes flickered slightly. She remained silent. Cheng Heijin, seeing her unmoved, sighed. "Fine. I can tell you've got your own plans. Our little team is just a bunch of classmates who happen to run into each other, nothing more than a ragtag group. Sticking with us would probably be more dangerous for you. Just be careful. Don't worry about the vehicle or weapons. I'll have them returned to you right away. They weren't always this reckless. The disaster hit too suddenly, everyone's still reeling. Don't take it too personally." Bian Changxi was slightly surprised. Seeing no pretense on Cheng Heijin's face, she couldn't help but regard him in a new light. She smiled. "I understand. Honestly, it was mostly Zhang Yuan and the others provoking me. My attitude wasn't great either." She pointed at her wrist-mounted communicator. "This reward was given to you by Gusu, and you've faithfully carried out his request. You deserve to keep it. But I am really interested in these 2 communicators. Could I have them? I don't have anything to trade right now. If you trust me, consider it a debt I owe you." "Just take it, no need for debts or favors," Cheng Heijin said quickly, handing her the second communicator. He held onto the pistol and ammo, then paused, his expression troubled. "Speaking of Zhang Yuan and Wang Yan, we met them on the way out of University Town. We'd seen each other a few times during school mixers. They claimed students from S University were spoiled and rude, couldn't endure hardship, and pretended to know everything while giving pointless orders. That's why they asked to join us. They trusted us, even if they don't always cooperate." Bian Changxi blinked, as if hearing some absurd legend. So they're saying they were underappreciated. She shook her head, bewildered. With their family background and intelligence, they were barely mid-tier at S University. What exactly do they have to look down on others for? Was it possible these 2 had been pushed out by S University students, rather than the other way around? Cheng Heijin was stunned. "But I thought S University was full of spoiled rich kids." He abruptly realized his mistake and fell silent, embarrassed. Bian Changxi was from S University too. What's wrong with being a spoiled rich kid? She said unfazed. Captain Cheng, you should know, while many students turned into monsters, the number wasn't that high at first. For the first couple of days, people were relatively safe. Anyone who took the lead in escaping early had exceptional crisis awareness, foreseeing that the dense population on campus would become a death trap. How many people like that do you think a university had? At S University, there were dozens. Not counting those who followed later, the first to organize and lead needed not only popularity and leadership, but also immense courage and foresight. The senior who'd led her group out in her previous life had been extraordinary. Later, Shed heard he held a high-ranking position in Sioux City base. And he'd been a carefree, seemingly useless rich kid before the apocalypse. People said S University was full of wealthy fools. But in reality, among the heirs of corporations and business empires, even if just 1 in 10 was capable, their vision and intellect far surpassed 100 ordinary people combined. That was why S University had the highest survival rate among all the colleges in University Town. Later, they even formed a powerful faction within Sioux City base. Of course, that was all in the future. 10 minutes later, Bian Changxi sped out of the warehouse lot on a knockoff Yamaha motorcycle, riding into the crimson glow of the setting sun. Behind her, Zhang Yuan glared coldly, Wang Yan seethed with fury, and the others watched with a mix of disdain, mockery, anxiety, or envy. She flew past blood-stained bus stops, abandoned vehicles, shattered shops, and unrecognizable corpses. Occasionally, she spotted people hurrying in the distance and passed by small groups of zombies wandering in the shadows, but she didn't slow for a second. Riding at top speed, she headed straight for Xinfeng District, finally pulling up smoothly beneath Building 5 just before the sun vanished below the horizon. Thankfully, the warehouse wasn't too far, and she was familiar with the area. Otherwise, traveling at night would have been truly dangerous. She dismounted, removed her helmet, and brushed her messy hair back with her fingers, all the while scanning her surroundings. The neighborhood had changed. There were more zombie corpses on the ground, along with clear signs of human casualties. The green belts were heavily damaged, some parked cars had been moved, and their bodies bore dents, scrapes, and bloodstains. Clearly, some residents had ventured out during this time. These pioneers had gained experience, tested their skills, and gathered valuable intelligence, direct, visceral knowledge of the world's brutality. This would become irreplaceable capital for their future survival. Meanwhile, those who hesitated and stayed put would fall further behind with every passing day. The reason Weissem became strong in the apocalypse wasn't without cause. She glanced up at the surrounding buildings. All the windows were tightly shut, curtains drawn thick and impenetrable. But upon closer inspection, she could see silhouettes moving behind many of them. She pushed her bike slowly into the building, stopping at a blind spot away from sight and surveillance. Looking left and right, she placed her left hand on the front of the motorcycle, focused her mind, and a nearly imperceptible cold light flickered across the jade bracelet on her wrist. In an instant, the motorcycle vanished into thin air. Bian Changxi blinked, a pleased curve tugging at her lips. She stored her backpack in the jade bracelet as well, then drew the rosewood straight blade and gripped it tightly, ascending the stairs one careful step at a time. Fortunately, she had luck on her side. From the first floor to the third, she encountered no danger. Only after thoroughly checking the kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom of apartment 303, and finding nothing amiss did she finally exhale and collapse onto the sofa. Power in the complex had long been cut. The apartment was dark and silent. Ignoring her gnawing hunger, so intense she felt she could devour an ox, she quickly pulled out the wrist communicator and switched it back to the contact labeled Captain Gu, then firmly pressed the call button. As the device emitted a series of connecting beeps, her heart began to race. Setting aside everything else, today she stood at the edge of power, holding a piece of knowledge that might alter someone's fate. Only someone who'd lived through it could understand the weight of that feeling. After about 3 seconds, the call connected. A voice came through the device. "Hello?" Bian Changxi lowered her voice and asked, "Gusu?" A brief silence. Faint gunfire and zombie growls echoed in the background, followed by a deep male voice shouting for cover. The situation sounded urgent. She frowned. Still fighting as night fell, they must run into serious trouble. A moment later, Gusu's deep, steady voice came through. "It's me. Are you the girl from yesterday?" His voice matched her memory, rich, resolute, slightly cold. The two versions of him, from different timelines, seemed to merge across a vast abyss of time, creating a strange, powerful resonance. She steadied her breathing, summoning the commanding presence Shed honed from years at the top in her previous life. "Yes, that's me. Captain Gu, your time is valuable, so it'll be brief. I don't like owing people. You saved my life, I intend to repay you. I have some interesting intelligence that might be useful to you. But first, I need you to promise me one thing. No matter what happens, you won't trace the source of this information, and you won't tell anyone it came from me." She stated her terms up front to prevent Gusu from hanging up out of impatience. By demanding a serious commitment first, she made him more likely to listen and take her words seriously. Dealing with Gusu, beating around the bush would get her cut off without mercy. Acting clever or overly eager to please would only leave a bad impression. But honesty and directness, that might earn her a measure of respect. Unlike her subtle warning to Cheng Heijun, revealing the truth about infected zombies to Gusu was clearly a risk. If they ever met again, he'd undoubtedly scrutinize her more closely. But if that was the case, it was far better to leave a good impression than to end up on his blacklist. She held her breath, waiting for Gusu's reply. Chuang 17, there was a response soon after, and Gusu's calm voice came steadily through the communicator. "I promise I won't pursue it or reveal anything. But if you're playing games with me..." Bian Changxi exhaled silently and smiled. "How dare I?" She asked Captain Gu, "There should be zombies nearby you, right? Can you describe what they look like?" Without hesitation, Gu Su replied, "Humanoid, gender still identifiable. Pale gray skin, rotting muscles, eyes popped from their sockets, sharp nails. They emit an intense stench of decay. Their movement is slow, vision dull, but hearing and smell are abnormally sharp. Their bones are a ghastly white, extremely hard, comparable to quenched high-carbon steel." "Do you want me to continue?" "Quenched high-carbon steel." Bian Changxi raised an eyebrow. Still as precise and clinical as ever. She walked to the window and looked outside. "No need. I've killed plenty of zombies myself. I can confirm what you're seeing now is the same type I've encountered before. But not long ago, someone discovered a variant, something different." "Oh." "They still have rotting flesh, but to a lesser degree. Their skin has an unusual bluish-black hue, looks tighter, more taut. And their bones are black, as if poisoned. If the bones of the zombies we've seen are like quenched high-carbon steel. Strong but brittle, then these new ones are like high-carbon steel that's been quenched and tempered. Much greater strength, and now with some toughness too. Their speed has also increased slightly. But most importantly," she spoke lightly, gazing ahead, sensing the growing tension on the other end of the line. She knew Gusu was listening, fully focused. "Earlier, I was scratched by a zombie. Captain Gu, I assume you've been scratched too. You know the blood from such wounds is normally bright red. But the blood from wounds caused by these new zombies is dark, almost black, foul-smelling. The wound itself keeps rotting, oozing pus at the edges. Somewhere in Jiang City, a man in a sleek black combat suit spun a throwing knife and slit a zombie's throat. He exchanged a glance with his teammate, then quickly retreated to the cover of a wall. The signal light on his earpiece blinked red. His sharp eyes flicked over to his comrade, who was leaning against a car, sniping, specifically, the blood-stained bandage on his comrade's arm. Calmly, he said, "Is that so?" Sounds like things are taking a turn for the worse. On the other end, the girl let out a soft chuckle, barely noticeable, yet he felt a subtle sense of relief. Whether it's bad or not, I can't say. I just think this is worth paying attention to. That's all I wanted to say, Captain Goo. I'll hang up now. You knew I was scratched by a zombie. His tone shifted suddenly. Bian Changxi froze. A moment passed before she answered, "That fireball. You can produce something like that too." "No, not at all. One of my teammates can raise earthen walls. That kind of unique ability is incredibly useful. I've been trying to figure out how to help everyone develop something similar, but I've hit a wall." I looked for commonalities between him and me. Only just now, thanks to your comment, did I realize we'd both been scratched by zombies. Bian Changxi stiffened, gripping the watch-like communicator tightly. She pressed her lips together and murmured, voice hoarse, "I didn't mean to hint at that. I didn't even know such a connection existed myself." "I see." A low chuckle came from the other end, followed by a quiet continuation. "In novels, they call it an ability." "What type are you?" For the first time since her rebirth, Bian Changxi felt the suffocating, omnipresent pressure of this crumbling world weigh down on her like a physical force. Outside the window, dusk thickened, so heavy it seemed it would never lift. Everything she saw was dim, chaotic, a mirror of the city's irreversible decline. The fading light cast a pale, somber glow across her face as she whispered, "I've said everything I came to say. Take care, Captain Goo. If fate allows, we'll meet again." Beep. She cut the call and stared ahead, slowly releasing a breath. So Gusu had seen through her from the beginning, had only given her a tiny opening to speak. Frowning, she mentally reviewed every word Shed said. No obvious slips. No dangerous hints left behind. Her intent to help him had been genuine, but she hadn't planned to expose herself or entangle herself with him. She knew this man, just a warning, just a brief window of preparation, and he could change the course of his life. If Shed rambled on anxiously, Shed only come off as paranoid. She glanced at the communicator in her hand, switched it off, and reached for the second one. Shed meant to toss them both out the window, but paused, then tossed both into the Jade Bracelet instead. At the sight of the bracelet, her mood brightened. She caressed it gently, thought, "I want to go in," and the world blinked. A sudden loss of balance, her legs buckled, and as her senses returned, she found herself lying on a patch of soft grass. Fresh, earthy air, faintly fragrant, rushed into her nostrils. Delighted, Bian Changxi quickly stood. Beneath her was a lush green lawn. Not far ahead stretched dark, fertile soil, a thin stream cutting diagonally between the two, clearly dividing the spaces. She knew exactly what this meant. The grassy area was like a pasture, suitable for raising animals, though Shed need to build fences and shelters herself. The black soil was moist and rich. Rice, wheat, fruits, vegetables, ornamental plants, anything would grow here normally. There were no seasons in this farm, and the weather was always a gentle, cloudy day, perfect for planting at any time. The stream, knee-high and pure, had self-replenishing properties. It could be used for drinking, bathing, or aquaculture, but only once she introduced seeds or saplings into it. Together, the black soil and grass formed a neat, square plot, surrounded by a milky white mist. The stream's source and endpoint vanished into the haze. At the edge of the dark soil stood a small wooden cabin. Carved on the door were two characters. Warehouse. Bian Changxi hopped over the stream and pushed the door open. Sure enough, her motorcycle, hiking backpack, fire axe, and two communicator watches lay neatly on the floor. She knew that although the cabin looked small, its storage capacity was enormous, far beyond what the eye could measure. The principles behind it were unknown to her. Time inside the warehouse was frozen. A bowl of hot soup, placed inside, would still be steaming years later when retrieved. Bian Changxi couldn't help but smile at the sight. Compared to the vast scale of the farm in her previous life, Before she died, this version was like a mouse standing next to an elephant. But compared to the barren, lifeless void shed first discovered back then, without even a blade of grass, it was already a miracle. As the farm absorbed more energy and leveled up, the mist would expand, increasing the total area. New buildings would appear, eventually housing. The warehouse itself would eventually sink underground. In her past life, thanks to the tireless research and massive investment by Zhu Yunhua's old classmate, Yi, the farm had grown to the size of 2 university campuses by the time she died. Inside, time flowed 10 times faster than the outside world. Crop cycles were short, yields astonishing. At least a third of Yunhua Basie's food supply had come from her farm. If not for fear of drawing suspicion, she could have fed all 30,000 residents without breaking a sweat. Thinking back, Bian Changxi felt foolish, adorably naive. She hadn't understood the old truth. No crime but the crime of owning treasure. If Shed kept the farm locked away, never giving Zhu Yunhua access, he wouldn't have dared to turn on her. But then again, if she hadn't contributed it, would Zhu Yunhua have allowed Yi to pour resources into researching and upgrading it? Would the farm have reached its full potential? That too was a paradox. Chuang 18 a moment later, Bian Changxi felt a tightness in her chest and a slight dizziness. Without time to think, she quickly exited the farm. Outside, the sky had already turned pitch black. The suite was completely dark, but fortunately, an ability user's vision was far superior to that of ordinary people. She could still see well enough to avoid stumbling blindly. That was strange. She had only been inside the farm for a few minutes. Suddenly, she remembered something. She pulled out the 2 watches Gusu had given her and timed it. 1 minute inside the farm equaled over 5 minutes in the outside world. She let out a bitter smile. She had forgotten that the farm's time distortion was tied to its level. Until she could upgrade it, she couldn't enter carelessly again, otherwise, it would take a serious toll on her body. On the other hand, when time inside the farm flowed slower than the outside, staying within not only granted her extra time, but also benefited her physically. But how could she upgrade it? Upgrading the farm had always been Qi's task. Zhu Yunhua, citing its complexity, had consistently kept her away from it, burying her under endless work to distract her. Now that she thought about it, Zhu Yunhua had long been wary of her, the very owner of the farm. Bian Changxi curled her lip in disdain. Did he really think she wouldn't figure it out? Upgrading required energy, and in this apocalypse, energy came from 3 main sources. Early-stage fossil fuels like oil and coal. Renewable sources like solar and wind. And the most widespread and consistent source, crystal cores harvested from the brains of infected zombies. In her previous life, the Jade Bracelet had remained on her wrist at all times, except during research. She had discovered that if she didn't store the crystal cores in the warehouse, they would vanish within days if left elsewhere. And each time, the farm would undergo subtle but unmistakable improvements. So one of her next goals was clear. Kill zombies, harvest crystal cores. Bian Changxi stretched her limbs. Her stomach growled loudly, and she quickly turned on the flashlight Shed bought, scanning the scattered food on the floor for something to eat. Meanwhile, not long before, Gusu had hung up his communicator. He drew his pistol from the holster at his waist, raised his arm, and shot with deadly precision, each bullet taking down a zombie staggering toward him. Advancing forward, he fired continuously while his left hand flicked out with a small knife, each strike claiming another zombie's life. Brains splattered as zombies dropped one after another. Yet from around the corner, more kept emerging without end, like flies drawn to rot, relentless and maddening. Shadow, ill cover you, go steal that car. We can't stay here any longer. Before the words had fully left his mouth, a dark figure shot out from the building behind him, dashing across the street to a gold-gray minivan. With a long steel wire, he probed through the window. Suddenly, a zombie burst from the other side of the van, yellowish fluid dripping from its mouth. Without even blinking, Shadow launched a compact fireball, blasting the creature to the ground. In the next instant, he pried open the door, jumped inside, checked the controls, fiddled with a few wires, and swiftly got the engine running. The van spun around, crushing several zombies before pulling up beside them. Gusu didn't even turn his head. "Get everyone on board. Qiu Feng, you drive this one." From the second floor behind Gusu, a group of people came rushing down. Leading them was a refined, scholarly-looking young man holding a rifle, and a boy of 18 or 19. Behind them followed 3 male students, and about a dozen men, women, and children of various ages. It was clear the group had split into 2 clusters, families of 2 of the male students. "Where are we going now? It's already dark, shouldn't we just stay here?" They were frantic and terrified, overwhelmed by the sheer number and grotesque appearance of the zombies. Many were trembling, barely able to stand. The refined young man was Qiu Feng. He turned back with a cold glare, his murderous aura silencing any further protest. He glanced at the 2 available vehicles, one an 8-seater minivan, the other a 6-seater SUV leaned against by Qiu Yun. He pointed sharply. "Zhao Cheng and your family take the minivan. Guo Ziyu and your family go in the SUV. Move quickly." No one dared object. Zhao Cheng's family, totaling 6 including himself, piled into the minivan. Guo Ziyu's group had 7, filling the SUV nearly to capacity. Qiu Feng turned to the boy beside him, Gu Pei. "Little Pei, you 2 also go in the minivan." Gu Pei nodded and quickly ushered the remaining lone classmate into the vehicle. Once everyone was in place, Qiu Feng leapt into the SUV and started the engine. Qiu Yun stepped aside from the SUV, gripping his sniper rifle with his injured arm. His face was flushed and he was breathing heavily, cursing under his breath. "Damn it, is human scent really that damn tempting? Kill 1, 2 more show up, how long is this gonna go on? Ammo's running low." Even as he spoke, he dropped 2 more zombies. His accuracy remained flawless. Gu Su glanced at him. "Qiu Yun, get in the minivan." Then, turning to the burly man who was still smashing zombies with a steel pipe while intermittently summoning patches of thick yellow soil to pin them down, he said, "Old Wu, get in the SUV and help Qiu Feng." "Got it." The big man boomed, fighting his way back before jumping into the SUV and slamming the door shut. He immediately swapped weapons, grabbing a submachine gun and leaning it out the window. The 2 vehicles pulled forward. The sturdier SUV took the lead, with the minivan following closely behind. The side doors of the minivan were still wide open as Qiu Yun shouted, "Boss, hurry up." Gu Su waited until the vehicles had picked up speed and confirmed the pursuing zombies posed no threat. Then, in one swift burst, he sprinted forward, leapt lightly into the air, graceful as a swallow, and landed inside the minivan. With a loud thud, the door slid shut behind him. 11 people were crammed into an 8-seater, tight, suffocating, the overlapping gasps loud enough to pierce the ears. At the driver's seat, Shadow murmured, "Which way?" Gu Su fell silent for a moment. They were now at the edge of the city center. They had already found a temporary shelter and planned to rest here before searching for Gu Pei's 3rd classmate's family the next day. But who would have expected the street, once cleared, to suddenly swarm with zombies again? He had noticed earlier that zombies' sense of smell and hearing sharpened at night. But tonight's zombies seemed even more persistent than yesterday's, almost as if they were evolving. Were the zombies growing stronger? The girl's words echoed in his mind again. New type of zombie. They couldn't push deeper into the city center. Watching the thickening twilight outside, Gu Su spoke low and firm, "Head north. Toward the new zone. Get out of the city as fast as we can." Shadow didn't question it. He relayed the message through the team channel on his communicator watch to the SUV ahead. Qiu Yun, however, looked surprised. He glanced at Gu Pei, who kept his head down in silence. The classmate whose family they hadn't found yet turned pale, panic rising in his voice. Commander Gu. Then he turned to Gu Pei. Are we retreating? You're not looking for my family anymore. Little Pei, say something. Please. Help me again, just one more time. Help me. He was on the verge of tears. Chuang 19 Gu Pei looked up at his brother's steadfast, silent back, guilt welling up inside him. He knew that if it weren't for him, his brother and comrades could already be in a safer place, instead of risking their lives driving through the city. All the food they'd scavenged had been given to him and his classmates, people who couldn't fight and offered no help. Qiu Yun had even gotten injured protecting them. Gu Pei could clearly see how dire things were becoming. Returning to the city now was extremely dangerous. How could he possibly ask his brother and the others to risk their lives again? But Chen Haidao was truly desperate. How could he say no? The four boys had been roommates, close as brothers. Seeing Chen Haidao grow frantic, Zhao Cheng in the car couldn't stay silent. Haidao, don't panic. They'll definitely help you find your family. Exactly. Isn't it a soldier's duty to serve the people? They'll take us somewhere safe first, then come back to help you. No need to worry, added an older woman beside Zhao Cheng, probably his mother. The others nodded in agreement. Qiu Yun raised an eyebrow, a half-smirk playing on his lips, but he glanced at Gu Su and said nothing. Gu Pei, listening to their entitled tones, clenched his fists and turned to glare at them. What are you even saying? That they owe us service. Do you really think my brother saving you is just something he's supposed to do? He suddenly remembered. Right after they'd been rescued, these people had showered them with gratitude, pouring out endless thanks. But ever since, it had been nothing but complaints, whining about this, fearing that, screaming and hiding at the first sign of zombies. The moment anything went slightly wrong, they started grumbling endlessly. It hit him then how little his brother and the others' efforts were truly valued. These people didn't feel genuine gratitude. To them, it was all just expected. The woman curled her lip, about to retort, when a man beside her tugged her arm, stopping her. Zhao Cheng quickly forced a smile. Pei, don't get mad. My mom didn't mean anything by it. She's just saying this because she trusts you all. We know you guys are good people. Gu Pei wasn't naive. He could hear the hollow, placating tone in Zhao Cheng's voice, zero sincerity, no real gratitude. Zhao Cheng, he shot back, do you also think it's a soldier's duty to save your family? An obligation. Did you not see how the school teachers and security guards ran faster than anyone else? Or the university town police, they were the first ones looting stores. Zhao Cheng's mother muttered, and it isn't a duty. We pay all those taxes for nothing. You're bringing this up just to make us feel guilty, right? Fine, we're grateful, very grateful. Once we're safe, name your price, we'll pay. She sneered. Besides, you've got guns, you've got manpower, being so strong, shouldn't you help us weak ones? Kid, you're in college already. What kind of moral education did you even learn? Gu Pei turned bright red with anger. You. Before he could finish, a dark gun barrel pressed against the woman's forehead. Qiu Yun grinned crookedly. What's the point arguing with trash like this? Just shoot her and be done with it. He smirked at the stunned group. Gratitude. Nah, no need to pay us in money. Just give us your lives, that'd be simpler. Free up some space so I can take a damn nap. The woman turned deathly pale. The others shrank back. Why you can't do this. Don't go crazy. Qiu Yun. Gu Su finally spoke. Qiu Yun rolled his eyes, lowered the gun, and leaned against the window, silent. Gu Pei opened his mouth, then lowered his head in shame. Brother. I am sorry. It's fine. Just a lesson learned, Gu Su said calmly. From now on, remember, not everyone is worth helping. And not everyone even wants your help. You have to judge not only your own ability, but also who you're helping. He smiled gently, ruffling his younger brother's depressed hair. But no matter what others say, that shouldn't stop you. You promised to help them find their families. A real man stands by his word. Tomorrow, I'll go with you into the city center. He glanced at Chen Heidao. You're coming too. Without you, we won't find the place. Chen Heidao asked nervously, just. The three of us. You want more? Boss. Qiu Yun sat bolt upright. That's way too risky. Those two can't fight. It's too dangerous. At least let me come. Shadow shot them a look of clear disapproval. Gusu chuckled and patted Qiu Yun's injured arm, making him wince and hiss in pain. Rest properly. You think guarding 10 people is easy. Meanwhile, any strange sensations from that wound? It feels like something's trying to crawl out from inside, Qiu Yun said bitterly. My whole body aches, I am burning up and my head's spinning. Tell me I am not turning into one of those monsters. Gusu's expression turned serious. Don't talk nonsense. Rest well. I'll have something to discuss with all of you soon. It was past midnight. The night hung heavy and dark. High above, at some unknown moment, a crescent-shaped blood moon had appeared, casting a pale, crimson glow over the world. A ghastly shadow draped across humanity. Unlike the city, where zombies roamed in endless hordes, the suburbs had fewer of them, mostly clustered in streets and residential areas. Around the industrial zone warehouses, zombies were sparse, appearing only occasionally, each quickly spotted and taken down by night watchmen. Inside one of the many warehouses, Cheng Heijun and the strength-mutated Jade were on first watch. One carried a cleaver, the other a heavy iron hammer. They had just finished killing a female zombie. Gasping for breath, Cheng Heijun asked, Jade, did you notice something? These zombies seem stronger tonight. He'd nearly been swatted aside by her claw. He examined the shallow gash on his hand, where the zombie's nail had scraped through skin, blood welling up. He frowned deeply. If he hadn't reacted fast, that hand might have been gone. The nail had been as sharp as a butcher's blade. Jode felt a surge of pride. He could clearly feel his strength was multiple times greater than others, and everyone else saw it too. The looks of admiration and awe made him feel invincible. He'd done most of the work in killing that zombie. Sure, it had felt slightly tougher than usual, but admitting that would make him seem weak, wouldn't it? Really? He said dismissively. Didn't notice. Cheng Heijun stayed troubled. It wasn't just strength, these zombies seemed far more aggressive. Already, 4 or 5 had attacked survivors tonight. That hadn't happened the past 2 nights. He couldn't help recalling what Bian Changxi had said before she left. I feel uneasy. Like something terrible is about to happen. Starting tomorrow, be careful around zombies. Don't rush in. Watch how others act first. What was going to happen? Cheng Heijun looked up at the blood moon, a deep dread settling in his chest. At that very moment, on the backside of the warehouse, 3 shadowy figures huddled together. What? You didn't get the Jade Bracelet. What kind of incompetence is this? That woman, Bian, was unconscious. How could you fail to take it from her? Chuang 20 faced with the man's accusation, Wang Yan snapped back resentfully. It was already in my hands. Who could have known that girl would snatch it back? And it's your fault too. Why did you come during the day? If you had, I could have handed you the bracelet first. Then no matter how bold she got, it wouldn't have mattered. The man sneered. Can't even keep hold of a single bracelet. Miss Wang, you're truly impressive. Since you didn't get the item, forget about the reward we agreed on. He turned to leave, but Wang Yan quickly grabbed his arm. I did put in effort. If you'd shown up just a day or 2 earlier instead of waiting till now to mention this stupid bracelet, everything would have been settled. This is your fault. You promised to teach me survival techniques for the apocalypse. You can't back out now. Earlier that morning, Wang Yan had been complaining to Zhang Yuan about having to bring Bian Changxi along as dead weight. This man happened to overhear. He immediately asked if the Bian Changxi she mentioned was the one he was searching for, then claimed the mutton-fat Jade Bracelet she carried rightfully belonged to a friend of his, one that Bian had stolen from them by force. Wang Yan and Zhang Yuan didn't care who the bracelet originally belonged to. What intrigued them was the man's claim that he knew why the world had collapsed, and more importantly, how to survive and thrive in this new era. Bian Changxi was practically half dead anyway. Stealing a bracelet from her wouldn't be difficult. Who wouldn't want first-hand apocalypse intelligence? They agreed on the spot. But though they managed to steal the bracelet, this man had vanished during the day, insisting on coming only at night. And as fate would have it, the plan failed. Everyone already knew how it ended. Wang Yan was never one to accept loss. She'd done her part, it was his fault for not arriving earlier. The reward was still owed. Period. The man let out a cold chuckle. Suddenly, he drew a small knife and waved it menacingly through the air. Wang Yan gasped and yanked her hand back. Zhang Yuan, standing behind her, tensed at the sight of the blade but quickly stepped forward with a forced smile. Friend, don't get angry. Wang Yan's just anxious, don't hold it against her. But let's be honest, our teammates are all in the warehouse. One shout and they'll come charging out. You came here secretly, so you clearly don't want to be seen. Why make things so tense? Zhang Yuan wasn't lacking in courage or cunning. Even with a knife drawn on him, he still tried to squeeze something out of the situation. Wang Yan, on the other hand, would have cowered at the first threat. He grinned falsely. After all, it's just information, nothing tangible that disappears once given. You've seen how hard we worked. At the very least, throw us a bone, right? Who knows, we might work together again. Let's be friends. He studied the man's face hidden beneath the brim of his cap and probed carefully. Besides, you wanting Bian Changxi's bracelet. It can't be just because it belonged to your friend, right? It's the apocalypse, nobody cares about petty ownership anymore. Could it be that the bracelet holds some secret? Wang Yan's eyes lit up. Exactly. I knew it. Why go through all this trouble, sneaking around like a thief? HMPH, if you want give us apocalypse intel, fine, I'll just go tell Bian Changxi right now that someone's trying to steal her bracelet. She smirked, arms crossed, eyes narrowed triumphantly. The man's face darkened, though the knight and his cap concealed it. He stood motionless, gripping the knife tightly, as if weighing his options. Zhang Yuan and Wang Yan exchanged glances, staying silent. Pushing too hard was dangerous. The man clearly had something backing him, whether allies or sheer ruthlessness. A low, mournful wind howled through the night, unnaturally cold. On closer inspection, a faint blood-tinged mist seemed to drift through the air, growing thicker, churning with unseen disturbance. Wang Yan rubbed her arms, shivering despite herself. The surroundings were dim, shadowed in darkness. Uneasy, she snapped, well. Have you made up your mind yet? Her words hadn't even faded when a piercing, inhuman scream erupted in the distance. Wang Yan jolted upright, eyes wide as she locked gazes with Zhang Yuan. That came from the warehouse, right. Then came chaos, shouts, curses, sobs, running footsteps. Amid the panic, a guttural, monstrous roar ripped through the noise. They'd survived 3 days in the apocalypse. That roar sent ice through their veins. A zombie broke into the warehouse. Clang! At that exact moment, the man's knife clattered to the ground. They turned in confusion, only to freeze in horror. His knife-wielding hand was now curled and trembling violently, muscles locked in spasm, veins bulging grotesquely. His skin rapidly turned ashen, then pale, peeling away like burned paper. His nails blackened, lengthened, thickened into jagged claws. They stared speechless. Then crack, snap, pop. A sickening series of sounds. They looked up dazedly to see his body twisting unnaturally. Bones snapped and reformed in seconds. His frame shot upward, swelling in size, muscles bursting through torn clothing with terrifying power. They shook their heads in disbelief, stumbling backward. Wang Yan's legs gave out, and she collapsed. From her low angle, she saw the man's face beneath the cap, sharp black brows, a hooked nose, cruel expression, already enough to chill the blood. But now his skin turned grayish-blue, nostrils flared like a beast's, eyes bulging from their sockets, mouth stretching wide and rotting, jagged teeth bared, drool dripping thickly from his lips. Hey. Wang Yan's mind went blank. Her stomach heaved, bile rising. Instinctively, she scrambled backward on all fours, then staggered to her feet, stumbling away in blind terror. Zhang Yuan wasn't faring better. He whipped his head around, just as the monster, threw back its head and shrieked, a fanged maw splitting the night. With a cackle, it lunged. Zhang Yuan's soul nearly left his body. Without hesitation, he shoved Wang Yan straight into the monster's path and bolted into the darkness. No. Aya. Wang Yan's scream pierced the sky. Inside her room, Bian Changxi opened her eyes. Darkness surrounded her, but outside, screams rose and fell in a relentless chorus. She kicked off the blanket and paced barefoot, rubbing her temples in frustration. What's going on? In her past life, the emergence of infected zombies hadn't caused such an uproar. The third night of the apocalypse had been quiet. Around midnight, zombie attacks grew slightly stronger, slightly more numerous. Some were lucky, the zombies that attacked them were still non-toxic. Their wounds, though painful, granted them abilities. But the others? The next morning, under the rising sun, they turned. Became infected zombies. They bit, they clawed, spreading infection, creating more of their kind. Within days, non-infected zombies vanished entirely. Every zombie carried the virus. Every bite meant infection. Yes, the first infected zombies were either evolved from non-toxic ones or turned directly from survivors. But Bian Changxi had no memory of that night being this chaotic. She estimated the entire neighborhood had been woken up. That meant countless ordinary people were turning into zombies simultaneously, in mere minutes. The sheer horror of it was unimaginable.